Chapter 1987. Humph. The eighth elder snorted when he saw Bai Qianqi's gaze. Anger burned in his eyes. How dare he say that he didn't have the right to take this kid as a disciple? What a joke. He was one of the 9 great elders. Although he was ranked 8th, he was still an elder. Moreover, he had reached the level of a great expert. That was a terrifying existence. Therefore, the 8th elder said darkly, "What kind of genius is he that even elders like us don't have the right to take him in? Bai Qianqi, I can see that your eyesight has deteriorated, but your ability to talk big has improved a lot. It seems that old 7th really knows how to take in disciples." Bai Qianqi gnashed his teeth in anger when he heard the 8th elder mocking him again. However, he was only a small disciple. He didn't dare oppose an elder. Therefore, he could only cup his fists and look at the purple-clad woman. The other elders were surprised as well. They sized up Lin Xian once more, and when they discovered that he was really just an early 6-star king realm youth, they immediately revealed doubtful looks. Bai Qianqi, tell us what's so special about this kid. He's just an early 6-star king. You're not trying to fool us with him, are you? The purple-clad woman was also very curious. She nodded slightly and said, "Tell us your reason, Bai Qianqi." Yes. Bai Qianqi didn't dare delay when the purple-clad woman spoke. He hurriedly introduced, "This young genius is Lin Xian. He just arrived at Valuria Manor today and was chosen by the Mountain Razor General." What? Just arrived at Valuria Manor? That's impossible. Many people in the Great Hall were in an uproar when they heard this. The elder's disciples especially cried out in surprise. Bai Qianqi, don't lie. How can someone be chosen by the Mountain Razor General on the first day? That's right. Someone who just arrived on the first day doesn't even have the right to participate in the selection. Humph, Bai Qianqi, you're clearly lying. Many people shook their heads. The 8th elder's disciples sneered. I'm not lying. He didn't participate in the selection. This brother Lin provoked the Battle Wolf Gang on his first day here. After that, he started a great battle with the 4 gang leaders of the Battle Wolf Gang and the 300 elites of the Battle Wolf Gang on the martial arts practice field. He single-handedly defeated 300 elites and 4 sect masters. There's actually such a thing. Hearing this, the envoys and elders were also moved. As for the disciples of the elders, they were all stunned. One by one, they opened their eyes wide in disbelief. They had also heard of the Battle Wolf Gang. They did not place the Battle Wolf Gang in their eyes, including the gang leaders of the Battle Wolf Gang. However, if the 4 sect masters and the 300 elites attacked together, no matter how strong they were, they wouldn't be able to resist. After all, although they were geniuses, they were not almighties. Moreover, these people had never heard of any 6-star king who could contend against such a lineup. Therefore, their first reaction was disbelief. However, Bai Qianqi said loudly, "I can't lie about this. All 200,000 people outside the king's mansion saw it. Moreover, the mountain-moving general and the colored glass general had seen it with their own eyes. If the elders don't believe me, feel free to ask them." Originally, these elders and disciples did not believe him at all. However, at this moment, they saw Bai Qianqi's confident look. They were very confused. Could it be that this kid in front of them really had a way to contend against so many experts? This time, even the purple-clothed woman was interested. She said coldly, "Bai Qianqi, continue." Yes. Bai Qianqi continued. This brother Lin attracted the attention of the mountain-moving general after defeating the 4 sect masters and the 300 elites. Then, the mountain-moving general suppressed his cultivation and used the strength of a 6-star king to fight this brother Lin. In the end, the two of them tied. What? He tied with the mountain-moving general? Hearing this, the elders also exclaimed in surprise. Their eyes were wide open. They looked as if they had seen a ghost. At this moment, the black-clothed man who had been closing his eyes suddenly opened his eyes. His sharp gaze pierced through the void. Is this true? The black-clothed man looked at Bai Qianqi and Lin Xian. Of course it's true. How would I dare to lie? Moreover, before I came, the mountain-moving general specifically told me to introduce this brother Lin to him. Moreover, He said that if our golden sword peak did not take good care of this little brother here, he would personally talk to the peak master. Whoosh! Once those words were spoken, even the elders sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Each and every one of them felt their scalps go numb. To be honest, they did not believe that this young man in front of them could tie with the mountain-moving general. Although the mountain-moving general had suppressed his cultivation, they knew how terrifying the mountain-moving general was. As elders, they did not have the confidence to suppress the mountain-moving general, let alone an early 6-star king in front of them. However, from the looks of it, he actually did it. However, how did he do it? It was hard for them to imagine. However, among them, one of the blue-robed elders was the first to react. He said with a smile, "Why don't you let this kid join my sect? I'll train him well." As soon as he said that, the others were shocked. Then, they came back to their senses. A black-robed elder said, "Old Five, what do you mean? Why are you snatching him so soon? Didn't you look down on him before? I dozed off before and didn't notice. Only now do I realize that this little guy actually has such talent. He's fated to be with me." Hearing the blue-robed elder's words, the corners of the young disciples' mouths twitched. Damn, how shameless can you be? Previously, these people clearly looked down on Lin Xian. However, after hearing about Lin Xian's miraculous battle results, they only started to snatch him. That was too shameless. Of course, they did not dare to say that out loud. They could only think about it in their hearts. However, while they did not dare to say it out loud, the other elders dared to say it out loud. Among them, the black-robed elder said, "Old Five, what you're doing is very shameless. I think this little brother is fated to be with me." Third brother, "You're also snatching people? Aren't the slots for the disciples behind you all full?" Another elder spoke. This time, it was the fourth elder. Then, the others also spoke one after another, expressing their willingness to accept Lin Xian as their disciple. Meanwhile, the eighth elder's face was flushed red. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth. That was because previously, he had sneered and mocked Lin Xian, thinking that he was not worthy of being his disciple. However, now it seemed that he was not qualified to accept Lin Xian as his disciple. Whether it was the fifth elder, the fourth elder, or the third elder, he was no match for them. Now, he was the most upset. He wanted to immediately find a hole to hide in so that he would not be embarrassed standing there. Chapter 1988. He wanted nothing more than to dig a hole in the ground and crawl into it. He didn't want to stand here and embarrass himself. At this time, the blue-robed elder smiled and said, "Little guy, you should join my sect. I recently took in a girl. She's about the same age as you, and she's very pretty. You could say that she's a national beauty. If you can join my sect, you might be able to have a wonderful relationship with this little girl." Damn, this elder Zhang is too shameless. The other disciples almost spat out blood when they heard this. The other elders' mouths twitched as well. The blue-robed elder was all smiles. If Lin Xian was really as amazing as they said, then he was definitely a peerless genius. So what if he used a honey trap to lure him over? It was just one female disciple. He would be willing even if it was 2 or 3. The third elder gritted his teeth when he heard the blue-robed elder's words. He hadn't thought that the other would use a honey trap as well. However, he wasn't going to give up. In the next moment, he spoke in a low voice. "Little child, you must be very strong to be able to contend against the Mountain Razor General. I have a set of glazed Vajra fist here. It's a top fist technique that walks the path of strength and ferocity. It's very valuable. If you can become my disciple, I can teach you this glazed Vajra fist." "What? The glazed Vajra fist? You're actually willing to take out such a treasure?" The other elders exclaimed in surprise after hearing this. That's right, the glazed Vajra fist was no ordinary technique. It was one of Valurium Palace's top fist techniques. It was extremely valuable. Apart from Valurium Palace's core members, only the third elder and his disciple had the right to practice it. At this moment, the third elder was using this fist technique to recruit Lin Xian. The other elders weren't willing to give up either. They all took out their trump cards to attract Lin Xian to their sect. "All right, let's stop fighting. You're all over 1,000 years old. Why are you still so childish? Right at this moment, the violet-clothed woman smiled. Hearing this, the elders in the hall stopped arguing. However, they still looked at Lin Xian with fiery gazes. At this moment, the eighth elder sneered. Then, he turned his head slightly and gave the disciple behind him a look. The disciple behind him immediately came to a realization, causing a cold grin to appear on his face. In the next moment, the disciple stood up and bowed to the surroundings, the two protectors, and the various elders. I have a suggestion. I don't know what the seniors think. In any case, we have only heard of this little brother in front of us. We have never seen his strength. I think it would be better for me to fight against this little brother. Firstly, I will be able to help the elders verify the strength of this little brother. Furthermore, if this little brother is truly talented, it won't be too late for the elders to fight over him. At this point, he looked at Lin Xian with a smile and a trace of cold light in his eyes. Hearing this, the elders nodded slightly. Indeed, they had not seen Lin Xian's strength. What if what Bai Qianqi said was false? If Lin Xian was not a genius, then they would not only lose their treasures after paying a huge price, but they might also be ridiculed by others. Immediately, the elders nodded in agreement. The two protectors also looked at each other. Then, the black-robed man said, "All right. However, since it's a sparring session, let's stop here." "Yes, sir." The eighth elder's disciple was overjoyed when he heard this. As for the eighth elder, he narrowed his eyes and revealed a cold smile. He did not believe that the kid in front of him had any outstanding talent. Therefore, he decided to send out his disciple to test the kid. As long as the kid was not strong enough, he would definitely be beaten to the ground. At that time, he would like to see which elder would be willing to accept such a piece of trash. The eighth elder was very satisfied and confident with his disciple. The disciple had short red hair and a dignified appearance. He was extremely handsome, and there was fire dancing in his eyes. He took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Lin Xian. He said loudly, "My name is Sun Yi, the eighth elder's disciple. My cultivation has reached the peak 6-star king level. Since you can compete with the moving mountain general, it shouldn't be much of a problem for you to fight me, right?" He deliberately mentioned the moving mountain general so that Lin Xian would not reject him. Because he was a peak 6-star king, his strength was extremely powerful. Below the almighty level, other than those at the peak 6-star king level, no one else was his match. Seeing this scene, the elders and young warriors all looked on with interest. They all stepped back and made an empty space. Bai Qianqi also looked calm because he had seen Lin Xian's strength with his own eyes. Therefore, he was not worried. Therefore, he retreated to the side of the crowd. Lin Xian looked at the handsome young man with short red hair in front of him. His eyes flickered, and then he said in a deep voice, "Just you? The eighth elder has another disciple, right? Why don't the two of you come at me together? This way, your strength will be more balanced." "What? Together?" Hearing this, everyone was stunned. That was right. The eighth elder had 2 disciples. Apart from them, there was another young man. However, no matter how they looked at it, Lin Xian's words were too arrogant. He wanted to challenge 2 peak 6-star almighties. He was simply courting death. Humph. The eighth elder snorted coldly, his expression extremely cold. The other party was actually so arrogant. He was really ignorant. Sun Yi even roared, "Kid, you're courting death." He did not expect that the other party would dare to look down on him. It was unforgivable. My senior brother doesn't even have to do anything. I can deal with you alone. 3 moves. I only need 3 moves to beat you to the ground. Originally, Sun Yi wanted to say 1 move. However, seeing that everyone was praising Lin Xian so much, he was not very confident. Therefore, he decided to use 3 moves to beat the other party down. He thought that 3 moves should be enough. Lin Xian laughed. 3 moves? You're too cowardly. He stretched out a finger and said in a clear voice, 1 move. I only need 1 move, and I think the outcome will be decided. He was very calm as if he was not in a competition. Despicable kid. You're too arrogant. I'll let you know what it means to keep a low profile. Sun Yi roared, and his expression became extremely ferocious. In the next moment, 2 balls of red flames appeared in his eyes. Soon, the flames on his body rose and formed a flaming armor that wrapped around his body. Not only that, but there were also bright red flames dancing on his palms. It was abnormally evil. Chapter 1989. The temperature in the main hall rose rapidly in an instant. It was like a furnace, and everyone was sweating profusely. The new martial artists were shocked. They kept retreating and channeling their spiritual power to resist the surrounding heat. As for the disciples of those elders, they all cried out in alarm. 10,000 Fire Sky Fist. This Sun Yi is going to be serious. Yes, this is the 8th Elder's ultimate skill. I didn't expect Sun Yi to use it. It seems that Sun Yi is really angry. Haha, that kid is really dead. Someone sneered. Once the 10,000 Fire Sky Fist is used, even a peak 6-star martial artist wouldn't dare to take it head-on. That kid is only a beginner 6-star. Let's see how he can resist it. Cold laughter could be heard. Obviously, everyone thought that Lin Xian couldn't resist it. Although everyone didn't think highly of Lin Xian was very calm. He looked at Sun Yi, whose aura kept rising, and then waved his hand. You're courting death. Sun Yi was enraged because the other party's contemptuous attitude made him very angry. He was just a beginner 6-star martial artist. What was there to be arrogant about? How dare he be arrogant in front of him? He really didn't know what was good for him. Therefore, at the next moment, he snorted and threw out a fiery red fist. In the sky, thousands of flames jumped and turned into a fiery fist that rushed toward Lin Xian. The terrifying heat wave was like a wild beast that wanted to engulf Lin Xian. Sun Yi was really angry with this punch. The surrounding martial artists exclaimed, and the elders looked at each other. Why do I feel that Sun Yi can kill him with one punch? I think so too. If no one comes to help, that kid is definitely dead. The elders and disciples were full of contempt. The elders' eyes were also flickering as they stared at Lin Xian. They wanted to see if this kid was as powerful as the rumors said. Facing the terrifying fist, Lin Xian's eyes also focused. Blue frost quickly condensed on his body. Frost palm. With a wave of his palm, the sky was filled with snow. Snowflakes fell from the sky, and a thick layer of frost formed on the ground. For a moment, half of the hall was filled with ice and snow while the other half was filled with lava. Ice and fire collided, creating an intense impact. Originally, these two attributes were mutually exclusive. At this moment, when they were displayed by the two young experts, it was incomparably terrifying. In an instant, the two energies collided non-stop, as if they were going to destroy everything in the world. Fortunately, at this moment, the black-robed middle-aged man waved his hand and immediately shot out a screen of light. It protected the entire hall, preventing the energy from destroying it. Frost martial artist? No wonder he was so arrogant. However, do you think you can restrain me? It's useless. Sun Yi sneered, his eyes filled with contempt. He was very confident in himself. Whether it was his fist technique or his cultivation, he was above his opponent. Therefore, he couldn't think of any way that his opponent could defeat him. But in the next moment, his expression changed. The contempt in his eyes disappeared and was replaced by shock and disbelief. This was because he discovered that his fiery red fist was covered in frost, as if it was about to be frozen. How is that possible? Damn it, melt for me. Sun Yi roared crazily. The heat in his body surged even more, as if he was a fire god. The monstrous heat wave shattered the void, but it was unable to melt the ice. Soon, the punch he threw out was frozen. Not only that, that huge blue frost palm carried the power of ice and snow, quickly enveloping him. What? The surrounding elders opened their eyes wide as if they had seen a ghost, unable to believe this scene. As for those elders, they started to frown. How was this possible? Eighth Elder's face was even darker. He did not believe that Sun Yi would lose to his opponent, because there was no reason. Whether it was cultivation or martial skills, Sun Yi far surpassed his opponent. But why would this scene appear? He could not understand. And under the blue frost palm, Sun Yi roared crazily. His entire body was covered in flames, turning into strange runes. It attacked in all directions. However, it was useless. Not only was his move broken, but his body was also quickly covered in frost, freezing him into an ice sculpture. Ka. No. Sun Yi screamed crazily, wanting to burn all his power. But in the end, he was still frozen. The expression on his face was frozen with deep fear, and Lin Xian's previous words were still echoing in his mind. One move could end the battle. For a moment, everyone in the entire hall was stunned. Even the left and right custodians exchanged glances with one another in astonishment. At this moment, they all remembered Lin Xian's previous words. One move to end the battle. Originally, they thought that the young man was arrogant and did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. But they did not expect that the young man really had such strength. He defeated 8th Elder's proud disciple in one move. Humph! The 8th Elder could not bear to watch any longer. With a wave of his sleeve, a fierce flame turned into a half-moon arc. It instantly hit the frost palm in front of him and immediately cut it open. He saved Sun Yi. However, at this moment, Sun Yi's entire body was covered in frost. His entire body was trembling like a snowman. Not only his body, but the spiritual power in his body was also frozen. He even felt that his soul was about to be frozen. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people were even more shocked. 8th Elder's face was extremely gloomy. He was defeated, completely defeated, and there was no luck. His opponent's strength was beyond his expectations. Therefore, 8th Elder's face was very ugly, as if he had eaten a dead mouse. The left and right guardians looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They knew that Lin Xian was definitely a genius, and a genius who could fight above his level. This kind of person was very terrifying. Their true combat strength could not be measured by their cultivation level. Genius. He's definitely a peerless genius. It was really rare to see someone who could fight above his level, especially 2 or 3 small realms. Amazing. No wonder he's chosen by the mountain-moving general. Exclamations of surprise rang out one after another. The eyes of those elders were spitting fire as they stared at Lin Xian, as if they were looking at a peerless beauty. Previously, they still had some doubts. But now, after seeing this battle, they no longer had any doubts. They had to get their hands on such a precious genius. This was because they knew that with Lin Xian's talent, with a little bit of training, he would definitely be able to rise quickly. In that case, whoever took in Lin Xian would have a greatly improved status in Jin Jianfeng in the future. This was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Therefore, these elders would not give up at all. Kid, if you join my sect, I'll definitely make you an almighty as soon as possible, the blue-robed elder said quickly. Chapter 1990. What you have, I have. What you don't have, I have too. What do you have to make him become an almighty as soon as possible? On the other side, the 3rd elder also snorted coldly. Then, he said, you won't regret joining my sect. The 2 elders began to argue, opposing each other with equal harshness. The atmosphere in the field became more and more heated. When the other elders saw that the 3rd elder and the blue-robed elder were fighting, they gave up. They couldn't win against the 2 of them at all. They shook their heads and sighed. They could only watch this fight with the mood of watching a show. 3rd elder brother, you're too overbearing. What do you mean I don't have what I have? The blue-robed elder was unconvinced. Your disciple quota is already full. What's the point of fighting? 5th elder, you can't say that. Anyone would want such a genius. Since you and I both want him, why don't we have a competition? All right, let's do it. I'm not afraid of you. The blue-robed elder also rolled up his sleeves. Their auras continued to climb to the peak, as if 2 invisible mountains were colliding in the air, emitting sonorous sounds. A surging river appeared above the blue-robed elder's head. It was like the Milky Way, endless and sweeping in all directions. The 3rd elder was illuminated by the Buddha's light. A ball of glazed light appeared on his body, making him look like a Buddha. He was incomparably valiant. Since the 2 guardians are here today, let's see who will win in the end. The 3rd elder's voice sounded, and the glazed light on his body became brighter and brighter. Humph! The blue-robed elder snorted coldly. The Milky Way above his head surged and surrounded his body like a heavenly snake, shining brightly. All right, the two of you, stop fighting. They were almost 2,000 years old, but they were still like children, fighting over a disagreement. They weren't afraid of being laughed at by the younger generation. The woman in purple frowned when she saw this scene. The black-robed man also said, "How about this? Let this kid decide who he wants to be his master." Since the black-robed man had spoken, the third elder and the blue-robed elder couldn't fight. Therefore, the two of them snorted and retracted their powerful auras. Then, their fiery eyes stared at Lin Xian again. The blue-robed elder was the first to speak. "Little doll, I see that you are an ice element martial artist, while I am a water element martial artist. Ice and water are both of the same element. If you follow me, you will definitely be able to increase your ice power." So what if he has water? Not only does he have ice, but he also has strength and a strong physique. Being able to contend against the mountain-moving general proves this point. My glazed Vajra fist is definitely most suitable for him. On the other side, the three elders were unwilling to show weakness. For a moment, everyone looked at Lin Xian. As for Lin Xian, he was frowning slightly. He had not expected this to happen. To be honest, he did not want to choose either of the two elders. Therefore, he was now thinking about how to reject the two of them without hurting their faces too much. However, he hadn't decided yet. At this time, another golden light came from outside the main hall. It was like a golden lightning bolt, arriving above the main hall in an instant. Suddenly, the golden light flashed and turned into a blurry human figure. Peak Master. When they saw the golden figure, everyone was stunned. In the next moment, they all bowed to the void. "You don't have to fight. I will take this young man as my disciple," the golden figure above said slowly. "The Peak Master will take him as his disciple personally." Everyone was shocked. They had not expected that the fight this time would attract the Peak Master. Moreover, the Peak Master would take him as his disciple personally. This was too shocking. After all, the Peak Master had not taken in any disciples for 500 years. The Peak Master had a total of 2 disciples, both of whom were taken in 500 years ago. In the past 500 years, he had not taken in anyone. They did not expect that he would take in another disciple this time. "Brother Lin, hurry up and thank him," Bai Qianqi whispered to him through voice transmission because he realized that Lin Xian was still in a daze. Lin Xian was indeed stunned. He did not expect the situation to change again. However, he soon heaved a sigh of relief. This was good too. He did not want to be the disciple of the 2 elders in the first place. Now that a Peak Master had appeared, he had a choice. Therefore, he also quickly cupped his fists towards the golden figure in the sky. Seeing this scene, the third elder and Elder Lanbao sighed. They knew that things could no longer be changed. The other elders quickly congratulated the Peak Master for taking in such a talented disciple. The golden figure laughed loudly, gave some instructions, and then disappeared into the void. Lin Xian could see that this was not the true body of the other party, but a manifestation of the other party's mystique. However, he did not care because he had not come here to become a disciple in the first place. He only wanted to find information about the nest of 10,000 dragons. After the golden figure left, the main hall fell silent again. Then, the purple-robed woman said, "All right, except for Lin Xian, who has been taken in as a disciple by the Peak Master, you can distribute the others, take them down and let them experience it. If they perform well in the future, they will be judged again." Next, the envoys distributed the remaining new disciples, and this matter was considered to have come to an end. "Brother Lin, congratulations," Bai Qianqi said with a smile. "It's nothing. I was just lucky." Lin Xian smiled. "You don't know, but the Peak Master of the Golden Sword Peak is an unparalleled almighty. He only has 2 disciples. Including you, it's the third. Being a disciple of the Peak Master is different from being a disciple of the other elders. The resources you can enjoy and the mystiques you learn are definitely beyond your imagination." "Who are the other 2 disciples?" Lin Xian asked. "Senior sister Qin Lan and second senior brother Qixing. These 2 people are already almighties now. I reckon they will send someone to pick you up in a while." 2 almighty disciples. Lin Xian was surprised. He did not expect the peak master to be so impressive. The 2 disciples he taught had already become almighties. It seemed that they had far surpassed those elders. Brother Lin, there's one more thing I need to remind you of. Although you've become the Peak Lord's disciple, since you have become a disciple of the Peak Master, you still have to be careful. Senior sister Qin Lan has a bad temper. Don't provoke her. However, second senior brother Qixing is quite kind. If you have any questions, you can ask him, Bai Qinqi said softly. Bai Qinqi said in a low voice. Evidently, he was deeply afraid of that eldest senior sister Qin Lan. As they were talking, a bright voice sounded in the sky. Then, a huge red-crowned crane flew over. On the red-crowned crane stood a man and a woman. They were very young. Moreover, they were very beautiful. Their aura was that of a 6-star king. Soon, the huge red-crowned crane stopped in the sky. Then, the 2 people looked down and shouted, Qianqi? Chapter 1991. Little Yu, Datong. Bai Qianqi also greeted them with a smile. Then, he said to Lin Xian, these 2 are second senior brother Qixing's disciples. Then, Bai Qianqi said to the 2 people on the red-crowned crane, Little Yu, Datong, this is the Peak Master's new disciple. Greetings, young Uncle Master. The young man and woman on the red-crowned crane hurriedly bowed to Lin Xian. You don't have to be so polite. Lin Xian smiled. He did not expect that he would suddenly become an Uncle Master. At this moment, Bai Qianqi said, Brother Lin, logically speaking, I should also call you Uncle Master because the Peak Master's disciple has the same status as an elder. And we are the elder's disciples, so according to seniority, I should also call you Uncle Master. Forget it, Brother Bai. Don't make fun of me. Lin Xian shook his head. Lin Xian felt very strange to have someone so much older than him call him Uncle Master. Although he felt a little uncomfortable, he knew that this was very normal behavior. It was like this in the cultivation world. Seniority was not determined by age, but by one's actions. Even if one was only 7 or 8 years old, if one's cultivation had reached the almighty level, a group of old men would probably respectfully call one a senior. Uncle Master, please come with us. The 2 people on the red-crowned crane said respectfully. Then, Lin Xian nodded and said goodbye to Bai Qianqi. Then, his figure swayed and he got on the red-crowned crane. The red-crowned crane spread its wings and flew like a shooting star, quickly streaking across the sky. After about the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the red-crowned crane finally slowed down and stopped in mid-air. Young Uncle Master, we're here. The 2 people next to him said respectfully. Lin Xian nodded slightly and looked ahead. Then, his figure swayed and he left the red-crowned crane. The young man and woman behind him also landed. Then, the red-crowned crane cried and spread its wings to leave. Uncle Master, please. The young man and woman led the way, guiding Lin Xian towards the huge and majestic palace. The palace was extremely luxurious. After entering, Lin Xian realized that the floor of the palace was actually paved with spirit stones. This was truly extravagant and extravagant. Most people wouldn't dare to use spirit stones to pave a road. Even if they wanted to, they didn't have the financial resources to do so. Lin Xian walked on the floor paved with spirit stones and followed the young man and woman in front of him into the main hall. There was a figure standing in front of him. That person was currently sitting cross-legged on the ground. Mysterious runes were flickering around him. His jet-black hair fluttered even though there was no wind. His eyes were tightly shut, and his cheeks were as sharp as a knife. Sensing that someone had entered, the man in front slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were long and narrow and deep, as vast and boundless as the stars. Master. The young man and woman at the front bowed respectfully. The black-haired man nodded slightly. In the next moment, his gaze swept past the young man and woman and landed on Lin Xian at the back. Immediately, a smile appeared on his face. As his smile spread, his chiseled face no longer became sharp. Instead, it was replaced by a touch of gentleness. You should be Master's new junior brother, right? The black-haired man in front of him said softly. That's right. Lin Xian nodded. then cupped his fists. "Greetings, senior brother." In the next moment, the black-haired man slowly stood up. His body was slender, like a sharp sword. "Although you've been accepted as Master's disciple, you still have to undergo some tests to obtain Master's true inheritance. Let me remind you, this test isn't simple. It's even a little dangerous. Of course, you can refuse. That way, you'll still be Master's disciple, but only in name. You won't be able to learn Master's extensive and profound divine abilities. So, junior brother, are you willing to participate in this test?" "Test?" Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He didn't know about this before, but he was very curious about what this test was. Therefore, after pondering for a moment, he nodded slightly.
Yes.
"Very good. Master didn't misjudge you." The black-haired man smiled, then stretched out his hand and quickly formed a seal. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Imprints formed in the air, then formed a strange pattern. Suddenly, thousands of rays of light were emitted from those imprints. Not only that, mysterious runes appeared on the crystal floor under his feet. Countless rays of light wrapped around Lin Xian's body. Lin Xian didn't resist. He knew that there was no danger and that he should have entered the so-called test. When the surrounding light disappeared, Lin Xian looked around. Endless white fog surrounded him. It was so vast that he couldn't see the end of it. However, in the next moment, his surroundings changed instantly. Mountains, rivers, palaces, and pavilions appeared around him. In front of him was endless white fog, which condensed into a beautiful figure. Murong Qingcheng. The figure that condensed was Murong Qingcheng. However, after her, the figures of Zhao Shui and Shan Jingqiu condensed. The three of them were exactly the same. It was impossible to tell them apart. Their eyes were like autumn water, shrouding Lin Xian. "Xianer." At this moment, a calm voice sounded behind Lin Xian. Then, Lin Xian's body shook and he turned around. He saw a middle-aged man standing there, looking like a god of war. He was extraordinarily handsome. "Father," Lin Xian exclaimed subconsciously, but soon he frowned, because he knew that all of this was an illusion and it wasn't real. The scene around him also changed rapidly, and finally, a huge mansion was formed. The vermilion door flickered with light. On the door plaque were 3 large words written in flamboyant calligraphy. "Sword Pool Manor." Is this the first test? Looking at his surroundings, Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile. "Follow your heart." Lin Xian smiled and walked forward, holding the hands of the 3 women beside him, and then walked towards the Sword Pool Mansion with the tall, middle-aged man. Lin Xian was going through the test, and in the hall, the young man and woman had already left. Only the black-haired man was left. There was a ball of light floating in front of him, showing the scenes that Lin Xian was going through. When he saw Lin Xian holding the hands of the 3 beauties and entering the Sword Pool Mansion, he suddenly exclaimed softly, "Follow your heart? This guy is really bold. Isn't he afraid of getting lost?" This junior brother's method is quite unique. At this moment, a cold voice sounded, and then the void fluctuated, and a blue figure appeared in the hall. She was wearing a long blue dress that was like the sea. This woman was beautiful, and her black hair was tied up with a red string. Her eyes were bright, but there was a sharp aura in them. It was as if she was a knife, and no one dared to look at her directly. Chapter 1992. "Senior sister, you're here?" The black-haired man smiled when he saw the woman in blue. He was the Peak Master's second disciple, and the woman in blue was the eldest disciple, Qinlan. Qinlan said coldly as she stared at the ball of light floating in the air with her beautiful eyes. "This person's method is actually the same as that person's. They both chose such a dangerous method. Looks like he's not someone easy to deal with." "Senior sister, there's no need to be nervous. It's very easy to lose oneself by following one's heart. Even if he can persist, he probably won't be able to persist for long," 7 Star said nonchalantly. However, Qinlan's expression was ice-cold. "Don't forget what happened 300 years ago. Don't forget that there was a person who used the same method 300 years ago and stayed inside for 100 years. One day outside was equivalent to 100 years inside." 7 Star's face stiffened, and even the smile on his face disappeared. However, he quickly returned to his senses and said with a smile, "Senior sister, you're overthinking. After all, that person is an exceptional genius. One can only come across it by chance. Not everyone is able to persevere for such a long period of time. I wonder how long this brat can persist." Inside the test, Lin Xian, Murong Qingqing, Zhao Shui, and Shun Jingqiu started their lives. Not only them, but Lin Xian's parents, grandfather, uncle, and the entire Lin family also started their lives. They started their lives together in Swordpool Mansion. This kind of life was very peaceful and tranquil. Outside, Qinlan and Seven Star also had extremely grave expressions because Lin Xian had stayed inside for a day. In other words, he had stayed inside for 100 years. This made them extremely solemn, because the person from 300 years ago only stayed inside for a day. But now, Lin Xian had stayed inside for a day and still hadn't come out. This made both of them somewhat anxious. This was because the first test tested one's heart, which was very important. Furthermore, it was extremely mysterious and couldn't be described with words. It was even more impossible to figure it out because everyone was different. However, they knew that the longer they stayed inside, the greater their future achievements and the broader their future martial path. Furthermore, there were many choices for the first stage. For example, he and Qinlan had chosen a different path, which was to directly kill everything in their way to clear the stage. The other was the same as Lin Xian, who chose to accept the illusory realm and experience countless baptisms. The latter choice was extremely dangerous, because over time, the cultivator would get lost in it. Would they not be able to distinguish between reality and illusion? However, if he could persevere in the end, the benefits he would gain would be self-evident. First of all, their martial hearts would become firmer, and even their soul force would be nourished and enhanced. Lin Xian stayed for an entire day, making Qinlan and Big Dipper very uneasy. In the middle of the mountains, there was a palace that was surrounded by mist. There was a golden figure sitting cross-legged inside. There was also a ball of light in front of him. At this moment, the scene of Lin Xian also appeared. The golden figure looked at the ball of light and nodded slightly. He was very satisfied. One day passed quickly, and then the next. This kind of life was very pleasant. It was like a quagmire that could make people sink deeply into it. However, Lin Xian opened his eyes inside the illusory realm at this moment. Golden light flickered in his eyes, and all the illusory realms were destroyed in an instant. Lin Xian took a step forward and left the illusory realm. This guy actually stayed for 2 days. He stayed an entire day longer than the person from 300 years ago. That was an additional 100 years of experience. This made Seven Star and Qinlan very uneasy. Qinlan coldly snorted. She turned around and directly left the Great Hall. Meanwhile, the black-haired man, Seven Star, stared at the ball of light. His eyes flickered with a trace of coldness. Lin Xian left the illusory realms test but did not return to reality. Instead, he came to another space. The surrounding scenery changed drastically. Ancient lands appeared below and formed a huge arena with a radius of 10,000 miles. Fight! Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile as he looked at his surroundings. He was not afraid of a fight. Sure enough, a black figure condensed on top of the huge black arena. He was pitch black, and his eyes emitted a cold light. There seemed to be a pair of black wings growing on his back. The black figure snorted. The wings on his back flapped, and he turned into an afterimage and charged toward Lin Xian. He arrived in front of Lin Xian in an instant. Then, he clenched his hands, and a black spear quickly appeared. With a shake of his hands, the black spear turned into a black dragon and swept toward Lin Xian. Boom! Lin Xian's expression was solemn. Then, he waved his hand and quickly struck out with the frost palm. Instantly, a palm that flickered with blue light and carried with it wind and frost slapped forward. Boom, boom, boom. There was an earth-shattering collision. Then, Lin Xian and the black figure fought fiercely. The two of them fought fiercely. However, at this moment, Lin Xian frowned. This was because he had the God's eye of heaven and his powerful soul power. It could be said that his perception surpassed ordinary almighties. At this moment, he could sense that there seemed to be a pair of eyes watching him. This feeling made his heart beat wildly, so he decided to conserve his strength and not use the power of the dragon sword soul. Instead, he only used the power of the sea god's ice to fight. Therefore, after 200 moves, Lin Xian was stabbed by the other party's spear. However, he was not injured. The black spear head passed through his body and was very illusory. Then, the black figure turned into a cloud of thick fog and disappeared into the sky. 200 moves, huh? It's beyond my expectations, but it's still not ridiculously strong. The black-haired youth, 7-star, muttered to himself. At the same time, in another mysterious palace, the golden figure's eyes flickered. However, he did not say anything. The second stage was passed just like that. The third stage was even simpler. It was a test of bloodline power. However, Lin Xian did not have any bloodline power, so this test was extremely ordinary. This made the black-haired youth sigh in relief. Although the other party's performance in the first stage was very valiant, the third stage was truly too ordinary. He did not have any bloodline power. He was simply an ordinary person. One had to know that 7-star also had a bloodline power. Hence, 7-star's lips curled up into a smile. On the other side, Lin Xian's figure gradually faded as he exited the test and entered the palace. Congratulations, little junior brother, for successfully passing. When Lin Xian came out, the nervous and cold expression on 7-star's face completely disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a warm smile. Chapter 1993. Little junior brother, come with me. I'll bring you to your residence. 7-star waved his sleeve and opened the palace's doors. Dazzling sunlight spilled in and illuminated the surroundings. Then, he stepped into the air barefoot and walked into the distance. Lin Xian followed beside him. The two of them flew over countless mountain peaks and arrived at a verdant valley. There were many palaces and pavilions inside, and there were also array formations flickering in the surroundings. Little junior brother, you'll live in that valley. 7-star chuckled as he rapidly descended. Lin Xian nodded and followed him. The valley below was very ethereal and quiet, very suitable for Lin Xian's current residence. 7-star took out some clothes, some tokens, and other items. He then said, as the Peak Master's disciple, your status is equivalent to an elder's, so you can order around ordinary disciples. As your cultivation increases and you break through to the Almighty Realm, your authority will increase. You'll naturally understand these things once you're familiar with this place. After explaining a few more matters, 7-star left. Lin Xian placed these items to the side. He didn't plan on staying here for long, so he didn't pay too much attention to these matters. Lin Xian had some peace in the following days. That Peak Master seemed to be in seclusion and didn't summon him. 7-star and Qin Lan also didn't look for him. They seemed to have forgotten about Lin Xian. Lin Xian didn't care about this at all. He quietly cultivated on normal days and increased his strength. That night, he was going to do some scouting. Thus, he concealed his aura and transformed into a wisp of nothingness, disappearing from the valley. Then, he came to an uninhabited mountain peak and used his heavenly secret divine eyes to look down. Golden Tao patterns surfaced in his golden eyes. They were extremely mysterious, as if they were the eyes of a god overlooking the mortal world. Under Lin Xian's Tianji god eyes, the locations of the experts were all revealed. This was because their qi and blood were like dragons under the heavenly secret divine eyes. In the distance, 7 beams of light circled around. It was like a celestial realm, and it was even more resplendent. Lin Xian knew that it was the core area of the prince's mansion. Looking at that place, Lin Fan's body swayed as he executed Heavenly Dragon's 8 steps and flew towards that place at high speed. Not long after, he arrived nearby. When he got closer, he discovered that the 7 balls of light were similar to Dragon Balls. They revolved around him, forming a light curtain. Only after entering the palace would one be able to reach the core area of the prince's mansion. But thinking about it, he would definitely attract the attention of those people if he went in. Therefore, Lin Xian sighed and left. It was impossible to sneak in. It seemed that they could only enter the core area of the prince's mansion through normal means. Lin Xian decided to find an opportunity to ask around and see if there was any way to quickly enter this place. On the other side, a mysterious figure also appeared in the valley where Lin Xian lived. That figure was like a ghost. It was very strange. Like lightning, it kept shuttling back and forth in the valley. But soon, he frowned, and a trace of doubt appeared in his long and narrow eyes. There's actually no one? The next moment, the black fog on his face dispersed, revealing a chiseled face. It was second senior brother 7-star. He was not here to assassinate, but he wanted to check if Lin Xian had any other secrets. However, what surprised him was that there was actually no one in the valley. He's just a guy who just arrived. Where can he go? 7-star frowned and snorted. This guy is indeed very strange. After pondering for a moment, 7-star disappeared from the valley. Whoosh! Not long after, Lin Xian returned to the valley. But as soon as he entered, the Crimson Dragon sent a voice transmission. Boy, my array has been tampered with. Someone's here. Lin Xian also frowned and was very vigilant. The next moment, his soul power covered the entire valley and found that there was no one inside. Presumably, they had left. It seemed that this Jin Jianfeng was not too peaceful either. Lin Xian sneered. No matter who came today, he would not let them off easily since they dared to target him. After 2 days, the valley regained its peace. On this day, several red-crowned cranes flew across the sky. There's actually someone down there? Several handsome young men stood on the red-crowned cranes and exclaimed as they looked down at the valley. What? There's someone? Don't joke around. This is Yinyang Valley. How can someone dare to live here? Aren't they afraid of death? Another person sneered. There really is someone. There's the fluctuation of an array and the aura of spirit power below. Let's go down and see who has the guts to live in this Yinyang Valley. Immediately, they rode their red-crowned cranes and rushed down. That guy down there. Hurry up and come out. A cold shout was heard and turned into rolling thunder that rushed down. Down below, in the valley, Lin Xian, who was cultivating, opened his eyes and frowned. The next moment, he swayed his body and appeared in the sky. He looked at the red-crowned cranes in front of him and the 3 or 4 young men standing on them. Lin Xian frowned immediately. Who are you? Oh my, you don't even know who we are. Seems like you're new here. Lad, are you a new disciple of Jin Jianfeng? You're too reckless. How dare you live in this place? I thought you were some powerful figure. I didn't expect you to be a 6-star beginner challenger. You're simply courting death by letting such a person live here. What did you say? Lin Xian frowned. He did not understand what these guys were talking about. What's wrong with this valley? I've lived here for a few days, but I didn't notice anything unusual. Forget it if you don't understand. We don't have any other intentions. We just want to see who's so daring. Now that you've seen it, we'll take our leave. The few young men sneered and rode their red-crowned cranes away quickly. Lin Xian's eyes flickered as he watched them leave. He did not know what they were talking about, but he knew that there was something wrong with this valley. Although he had not discovered the problem yet, these few people's behavior should not be fake. If there was something wrong with this valley, why did they let him stay here? Wait, this valley was arranged by 7-star. Could it be that there's something wrong with this 7-star? Lin Xian sneered when he recalled that someone had secretly come to the valley before. Could it be that this 7-star was a smiling tiger with a knife hidden behind his smile? With that thought, a trace of coldness appeared in Lin Xian's eyes. He secretly became wary of 7-star. Chapter 1994. However, he still decided to stay here for the time being, because he wanted to see what was so special about this valley. It was actually so surprising. In the next few days, there was nothing unusual. But on this day, a full moon hung in the sky like a silver plate, illuminating the entire land. Lin Xian was still cultivating, but at this moment, he suddenly felt something unusual. So in the next moment, he suddenly opened his eyes, because he discovered that all the vitality in the entire valley seemed to be rapidly disappearing. Instead, it was replaced by a cold and incomparably dark aura of death. Boom, boom, boom. Streams of death aura appeared, transforming into ghostly hands that swept towards Lin Xian. Not only that, but headless beasts and powerhouses that had been pierced appeared around him, floating nonstop. Streaks of terrifying afterimages appeared beside him, as if they were malicious ghosts, howling as they pounced towards him. Get lost! Xian roared angrily, and the dragon sword domain instantly appeared, enveloping him. Then, tens of thousands of sword chi slashed in all directions, sending all of these phantoms flying. At the same time, all of the surrounding death aura was destroyed. However, it was useless. More death aura and phantoms came, wrapping around Lin Xian without any regard for their lives. As for Lin Xian, the great dragon sword soul in his body surged, and the dragon sword domain emitted light. Then, his entire body soared into the sky, transforming into a sharp ray of light. He broke through the endless death aura and left the valley. It was too dangerous. This death aura was very terrifying. Even if a mighty figure was entangled, they would probably be killed. Lin Xian's face was extremely gloomy. Now, he finally knew why those young men sneered a few days ago. There was indeed something wrong with this valley. In the sky, looking at the pitch-black valley below, Lin Xian's face was extremely gloomy. He had been schemed against, but why? Could it be that he had revealed some flaws? That shouldn't be the case. This was Zhongzhou. No one knew who he was, and those people from the eastern wasteland wouldn't have chased him here. It wasn't his former enemy, and he didn't show the slightest interest in the nest of 10,000 dragons. In other words, it was a new enemy. But who was it? Su Chen thought about it, and realized that only second senior brother, 7-star, was the most suspicious. After some judgment, Lin Xian knew that the person who plotted against him was very likely that second senior brother 7-star. When he thought of this, his expression turned cold. He had no enmity with the other party, but the other party actually plotted against him? This caused Lin Xian's heart to be filled with killing intent. However, now was not the time to make a move. However, Lin Xian decided that as long as he had the chance, he would definitely kill the other party. Looking at the Black Valley below, the aura of death permeated the air. Lin Xian knew that he could no longer stay in this place. Therefore, with a sway of his body, he landed in a nearby valley. Then, he flicked out a few strands of sword chi with his finger and opened up a cave abode. Then, he set up a formation and went in to rest. The next day, when the sun rose, the aura of death in the quiet valley disappeared, and peace was restored. In the sky, 2 rays of light flew over. They quickly came to the vicinity of the valley and scanned the area. Suddenly, they fixed their eyes on a mountain peak and sneered. "Over there, let's go." After the 2 rays of light disappeared, they were 2 young men. Their expressions were cold and arrogant as they quickly arrived in front of a mountain peak. Then, one of them shouted coldly and struck out with his palm. Boom! The spirit chi in the sky gathered and formed a huge palm that covered an area of 100 kilometers. It slammed down fiercely. Boom! If the palm landed, it would definitely flatten the mountain peak. However, when the light palm landed in midair, rays of light suddenly lit up below. Then, a formation was formed and blocked the shocking palm. Seeing this scene, the 2 young men above frowned. The young man in red who attacked sneered. In the next moment, he shouted coldly, "Who is it? Get out here." On the mountain peak below, there was a cave abode that was opened up by Lin Xian. In the cave, Lin Xian frowned and slowly opened his eyes. He could naturally sense the situation outside, and his face immediately darkened. When he heard the other party's arrogant voice, his body flashed and instantly disappeared from the cave. In the next moment, he appeared in the air opposite the 2 young men. "Who are you? How dare you disturb my rest?" Lin Xian asked coldly. He was still in a very bad mood after being ambushed yesterday. He hadn't expected that someone would come looking for trouble the next day at daybreak. Did they really think he was easy to bully? "Who are you, kid? How dare you open up a cave abode here?" However, the young man in red asked coldly. The young man in blue also said, "We're not disturbing your rest. We're enforcing the law." "What? Enforcing the law?" Lin Xian furrowed his brows when he saw their arrogant and cold attitudes. What? Can't I open up a cave abode? You don't have the right to open one. The young man in red sneered. Every inch of land here belongs to Valurium Manor. Only Valurium Manor's people can open up a cave abode. Everyone else can only live here. Not even Jin Jianfeng's elders? Lin Xian asked again. Of course not. That's why you've broken the rules. Come back with us obediently. Lin Xian's face darkened when he heard this. In the next moment, he waved his sleeve and countless boulders surged downwards. The cave abode quickly disappeared. The formation around it turned into rays of light and disappeared into Lin Xian's sleeve. Lin Xian said in a low voice, "Is this enough? Do you think you'll be fine after filling up the cave abode? You've already opened up a cave abode. Of course you've broken the rules. We're going to take you back to the law enforcement hall for punishment. Come back with us obediently, kid. Otherwise, you'll suffer a terrible fate." The two men sneered. The young man in red didn't say anything else. He reached out and grabbed at the space in front of him. An enormous palm of light immediately covered the sky and enveloped Lin Xian. Lin Xian was infuriated as well. These people were unreasonable and wanted to capture him by force. Moreover, they'd come here so early in the morning. It was obvious that they'd planned this. After all, there were hundreds of thousands of people in Jinjianfeng. There were countless mountains and lands. Who knew where a newly opened cave abode would be? But these two people had been able to find it so precisely, and when the aura of death had just disappeared from the valley, it was obvious that this was a meticulous plan. Their goal was to capture him. When he thought of this, the cold light in Lin Xian's eyes grew even colder. In the next moment, he waved his hand. A frosty aura filled the air and froze the enormous palm of light in an instant. "You dare defy us, kid?" The young man in red's face darkened. The young man in blue next to him sneered as well. Chapter 1995. Kid, it looks like you don't know what's good for you. No one dares to stop us enforcers from doing our job. Even the elders have to follow us back obediently. How dare you resist? You're dead meat. Dead meat? Lin Xian sneered. Is that so? I don't think so. It's easy if you want to take me back. Just do it and I'll go back with you. If you can't do it, you two can get the hell out of here. At the end of his words, Lin Xian's body glowed with a sharp light. It transformed into countless rays of sword light that swept in all directions. You're courting death. The blue-clothed youth was furious. He attacked as well. The blue-clothed youth was also a frost cultivator. Thus, he transformed into a giant ice cage that enveloped Lin Xian. In an instant, countless layers of ice appeared around Lin Xian. They crackled as they formed a giant cage that trapped him. Looking at the ice cage around him, Lin Xian snorted coldly and punched out. Boom! The terrifying fist transformed into a black dragon. It swept out and shattered the ice cage into pieces. Not only that, Lin Xian swung his fist and charged forward. You're courting death. How dare you attack us? Are you tired of living? The two youths were enraged when they saw this scene, especially the blue-clothed youth. He didn't expect the other party to break out of his cage so easily. Not only that, the other party even attacked him. The two of them were members of the Valurium Palace's enforcers. Moreover, they were both peak 6-star cultivators. The other party was only an early 6-star cultivator. How dare he attack them? What a fool. However, just as they finished yelling, the black fist came crashing down. The blue-clothed youth stretched out his hand and gathered the power of frost in the air. It formed an ice shield in front of him to defend himself. Crack! Boom! However, it was useless. The giant ice shield was shattered into pieces in an instant. Not only that, the blue-clothed youth was also hit. He was sent flying, spitting out blood. Damn it! How is this possible? How can he be so powerful? The blue-clothed young man wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his face became extremely ugly. That punch just now had shattered half of the bones in his body. This made him extremely terrified. He had no choice but to take out a large number of spirit medicines from his ring of holding and quickly swallow them. At the same time, He circulated his cultivation method to heal his injuries. Brat, you dare to hurt me? I'm from the law enforcement hall. Kneel down and accept your death. On the other side, the red-clothed youth was enraged when he saw this. Clang! He drew the red sword from his waist and slashed forward. The red long sword expanded in the wind, transforming into a gigantic flaming sword that was over 1,000 feet long. As the sword slashed down, a wave of air billowed into the sky. Boom! Boom! Faced with such a terrifying flaming greatsword, Lin Xian unleashed his black fist and attacked wildly. In the end, the huge flaming sword was shattered into pieces. How is this possible? The red-clothed youth was extremely shocked. He held the broken red sword in his hand, and his arm was numb. The spiritual power in his body could not circulate smoothly. He was simply too shocked. Who exactly is this person? How can he be so powerful? Isn't he just a beginner 6-star challenger? The two youths looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. In the next moment, their scalps went numb, and they turned around to flee. Trying to escape? Lin Xian sneered. How could he let these two go? He extended both hands, and 2 streams of sword chi turned into long dragons that rushed in all directions, trapping the 2 youths and pulling them to his side. Sensing the fierce aura, the 2 youths' faces turned extremely pale. What are you trying to do? I'm warning you. We're from the law enforcement hall. If you dare to touch us, you're dead meat. Even if you're the peak master's disciple, you'll still be finished if you offend the law enforcement hall. The 2 youths roared crazily and struggled with all their might. You actually know my identity? Lin Xian was shocked. He originally thought that the 2 youths did not know his identity, so they attacked him. However, it seemed that this was not the case. The 2 youths actually knew that he was the peak master's disciple and dared to attack him. It seemed that they had something to rely on. At the thought of this, Lin Xian's face darkened. He asked coldly, "Who sent you to deal with me? Also, what's going on in this valley? What secrets does it contain? Don't even think about it. Even though you caught us, don't think that you'll get any information from us." The 2 youths snorted coldly. Although their faces were pale, their eyes were filled with malice. Not going to talk? Lin Xian sneered, reached out his hand, and grabbed the other party's head. Suddenly, a terrifying icy aura poured into the other party's body. The red-clothed youth screamed crazily. The icy aura around his body surged, and a thick layer of frost formed on his body. Cold. It was too cold. It felt as if his soul was about to be frozen. Are you going to talk or not? Lin Xian snorted coldly. At this moment, the blue-clothed youth gritted his teeth. Attack me if you dare. He was also one of the Ice 5, so he was confident that he could resist the ice. However, Lin Xian sneered. All right, since you asked for it, I'll fulfill your wish. As he said that, his left hand pressed down on the blue-clothed youth's head. In the next moment, endless black flames surged out and enveloped the blue-clothed youth. Flames? How is this possible? You're not an ice-type warrior. How can you have flames? The youth screamed crazily. He felt as if his entire body was about to be ignited, and even his soul was about to be burned into nothingness. Damn it, you're an ice-type and fire-type king. He was terrified because he did not expect the other party's flames to be so powerful. His icy aura was completely useless. Can you tell me now? Seeing the 2 youths on the verge of death, Lin Xian withdrew his hand. The 2 youths were terrified. They looked at Lin Xian, their bodies trembling. They did not dare to be arrogant anymore and quickly said, "It was your second senior brother, 7-star, who sent us." It really was him. Hearing this, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes, and a murderous intent appeared in his eyes. His guess was right. It was indeed the second senior brother, 7-star. Why is he targeting me? Also, what's the matter with the valley below? Lin Xian continued to ask. The valley below is called the Yin-Yang Valley. It's nothing on normal days, but every full moon, it will surge with endless death aura, turning it into a death valley. At that time, even mighty figures would not dare to enter. The red-clothed youth said, As for why your second senior brother wants to kill you, I think it's because he's jealous of you. After all, having one more person would threaten his future inheritance. Moreover, we heard from him that you seem to be very extraordinary, which made him very wary. Chapter 1996. Fear? What's going on? Lin Xian was puzzled. He did not display his strength in front of the 7-star. Why would the other party be afraid of him? One had to know that he was only a 6-star king on the surface, while the 7-star king was an almighty. It was a joke for an almighty to be afraid of a 6-star king. It's said that you're very similar to that person from 300 years ago. At this moment, the blue-clothed young man said weakly, "The person from 300 years ago? What's going on? Tell me clearly." Actually, the peak master of Jin Jianfeng has 3 disciples, not 2. There was one before you, but he betrayed us. Betrayed us? Where did he go? Why did he betray us? I don't know why, but that person is very powerful. Back then, he suppressed senior sister Qin Lan at a young age. The 7-star second senior brother was no match for him. That person lived in the Yinyang Valley back then. Where is he now? Lin Xian asked. He did not expect the peak master of the Golden Sword Peak to have a disciple. That person left long ago. It's said that he joined the Yinyang sect. He even became an elder of the Yinyang Horn. Joined the Yinyang sect? Lin Xian was shocked. If he remembered correctly, the Yinyang sect should be a powerful sect in the middle ground. It was very ancient and powerful. It was similar to the sacred grounds in the eastern wilderness. He did not expect Jin Jianfeng to have such a thing. But what did it have to do with him? Why was he similar to the person who joined the Yinyang sect? What was the similarity between the two of them? Lin Xian could not figure it out. The 2 young men did not know either. They looked at Lin Xian and asked in a trembling voice, can you let us go now?" "Let you go? Sure. But since you dared to provoke me, I'll cut off one of your arms as a warning." Lin Xian's eyes turned into sharp sword qi and slashed at the 2 of them. Immediately, one of their arms was cut off. The 2 of them screamed and rolled in the air. Their blood dyed their clothes and the sky red. "Get lost. If you dare to provoke me again, I'll kill all of you." As he spoke, Lin Xian waved his sleeve and sent the 2 flying. In the next moment, he turned into a bolt of lightning and flew toward the valley below. At this moment, Yinyang Valley had returned to normal. Not only that, but there were also several peculiar purple trees in the valley. Their branches were like long dragons, and they were abnormally dark and thunderous. It was unknown how many years it had existed. At that moment, several black and white fruits were growing on the purple tree. What is this? Lin Xian was surprised because he clearly remembered that just yesterday, these trees did not have these black and white fruits. Could it be that it had something to do with the death aura last night? Thinking of this, he waved his hand and was about to pluck the black and white fruit to study it. "Stop!" However, at this moment, a delicate shout came from behind. Then, a figure streaked across the sky like a red lightning bolt, heading straight for Lin Xian. A sharp aura spread out and turned into a red saber light that slashed down fiercely. Before the saber light could even reach Lin Xian, cracks had already appeared in the sky. Even Lin Xian's clothes were fluttering in the wind. Lin Xian frowned and suddenly turned his head. He realized that the red saber light was coming for him. He immediately snorted coldly. In the next moment, he clapped his hands and directly faced the attack. Boom! A blue ice ball appeared in his palm. Then, it collided with the red saber light, making a sonorous sound. The void cracked, and the red saber light was completely frozen. The figure was also knocked back. The light disappeared, and then a figure appeared. It was a woman with a pretty face. However, at that moment, there was an unknown anger in her beautiful eyes as she stared at Lin Xian. "Who are you? How dare you stop me? Get lost. The Yinyang fruit is not something you can touch." The woman shouted coldly. "Yinyang fruit?" Hearing that, Lin Xian frowned. Was the black and white fruit called the Yinyang fruit? The valley was called the Yinyang Valley, and it was indeed magical that the Yinyang fruit could be produced here. However, what was the use of the fruit? Lin Xian did not know. However, when he thought about it, it should be a treasure. Otherwise, the woman in red would not be so angry. I don't care about the yin-yang fruit. From now on, this valley is mine. Therefore, the things inside are naturally mine too. Who are you? Get lost. Lin Xian looked at her and said coldly, What? This valley is yours? The woman in red was stunned when she heard that. Soon, it turned into a sneer. Are you kidding me? No one lives in the yin-yang valley. It has been ownerless for 300 years. Who are you, kid? Get lost. Otherwise, don't blame me for killing you. Humph. Lin Xian snorted coldly. No one has lived here for 300 years, but from now on, this valley is mine. You're courting death. Seeing Lin Xian's arrogant and domineering words, the woman in red was instantly enraged. In the next moment, she held a long saber in her hand, and a biting cold saber light shot into the sky. She viciously slashed at Lin Xian. At the same time, the woman in red's body swayed and disappeared on the spot. Whoosh! Lin Xian flicked his fingers, and streaks of sword chi surged out to resist the sharp saber light that filled the sky. However, at this moment, the void beside him split open, and the woman in red suddenly appeared. The long saber in her hand viciously slashed at Lin Xian. Clang! Lin Xian's arm was imbued with boundless ice. He slapped the blade with his palm, sending the blade flying. In the next moment, he threw a punch at the woman in red. A violent aura appeared between heaven and earth. Streaks of black dragon tattoos wrapped around his fist and turned into a black dragon that charged forward. The world lost its color, and it was as if only the black dragon was left roaring. When the woman saw this, her body suddenly stiffened, and the spiritual power in her body froze. Her pretty face became extremely pale. This was because she did not expect this young man, who was only at the beginning of the 6-star level, to possess such a powerful fist technique. This fist technique made her body tremble. She wanted to escape, but she realized that her surroundings had been frozen by endless ice. There was no way for her to retreat. Therefore, she could only grit her teeth and resist with all her might. A red light appeared. The woman waved her hand, and a set of bright red armor covered her body. Not only that, but her delicate hands also quickly formed a seal. They gathered in front of her and formed a light screen to resist the black fist. Boom, boom, boom. Everything seemed to be in vain. The red light screen was extremely fragile under the black fist. It was ruthlessly torn apart like a piece of paper. Chapter 1997. After that, the black fist ruthlessly smashed into the red-clothed woman's armor. Immediately, an earth-shattering sound was heard. The woman screamed in agony as she flew backwards, turning into a streak of red light. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Her body smashed into a mountain peak, causing it to break apart. Junior sister. At this moment, a furious roar came from afar. Soon after, several rainbows appeared in the sky and streaked across the sky like lightning. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The rainbows danced in the air, turning into 3 figures. They came to the woman's side and helped her up. There were 2 men and 1 woman. One of them was a middle-aged man, and the other 2 were a young man and woman. The young woman quickly took out a pill and fed it to the woman in red. The other 2 glared at Lin Xian furiously. Kid, how dare you hurt my junior sister? I'll kill you. The young man drew his long sword from his waist. The middle-aged man's expression darkened. Who are you? He asked coldly. Get over here and kneel for your death. These people were furious. They'd come to Yin-Yang Valley to pick the yin-yang fruit. However, they didn't expect that someone would come before them and even injure their junior sister. They wouldn't let this go. Who am I? Lin Xian sneered. And who are you? This is where I live. Aren't you afraid of being punished by my residents for causing trouble for no reason? He knew that those who could come here were all from Valurium Palace. These people were strong, but he'd never seen them before. Presumably, it was not from the Golden Sword Peak. Perhaps it was from the other peaks. It was hard to say. But no matter who they were, Lin Xian wouldn't let them enter Yin-Yang Valley and cause trouble. What? Your territory? The three newcomers were stunned when they heard this. The young man snorted. Are you kidding? Yang Valley is ownerless. Since when did it become your territory? Kid, don't lie. The young woman snorted as well. The middle-aged man's expression darkened. Who are you, kid? You don't look familiar. Jin Jianfeng is new? You dare to be arrogant in front of us? And who are you? Lin Xian asked. Even we don't know? Kid, listen carefully. We are the disciples of Tai Yunfeng's third elder. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and get over here to die. Otherwise, if we catch you, we'll definitely let you know the feeling of living a life worse than death. The three of them had ice-cold expressions. Apart from the injured woman, the middle-aged man among the three of them was at the perfection 6 stars realm. As for the other two, they were both peak 6 stars. When the three of them joined forces, it could be said that they were very powerful. Furthermore, in their opinion, the other party was only an elementary 6-star cultivator. Such a person was not even worth mentioning in their eyes. They felt that their junior sister's injury must have been caused by carelessness. How could an early-stage 6-star King Realm cultivator possibly injure them? Brat, since you don't want to die obediently, then I can only make a move. The young man stood up. Ka. A suit of armor appeared around his body, enveloping his entire body. Then, he unsheathed the sword at his waist. Wong, terrifying sword aura surged, piercing through the clouds and shining brightly. In the end, the long sword slashed down. Instantly, a sword aura that was almost 1,000 feet long descended rapidly from the sky. Kid, go to hell. The young man sneered. Humph. Lin Xian snorted coldly. That's not how you use your sword. That's not how you use your swordsmanship. At the next moment, he slapped his palm toward the sky and collided with the sword aura. Instantly, there was a huge explosion in the sky. The terrifying sword aura that was 1,000 feet long was directly shattered. He can actually block my attack? This kid is much more powerful than he looks. The young man frowned. The middle-aged man also said, Junior brother, be careful. This kid is very strange. He might be able to fight someone of a higher level. Don't worry, senior brother. So what if he can fight someone of a higher level? In front of me, he's still nothing. The young man sneered and was prepared to attack again. However, Lin Xian stretched out his palm. In the center of his palm, a black aura spun rapidly, forming a powerful suction force that shrouded the young man. How can this be? The young man was pulled forward by the powerful suction force. He could not control himself at all. He roared crazily, trying to break the suction force, but he could not do so at all. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the young man arrived in front of Lin Xian. Then, his neck was gripped by Lin Xian. His entire body was pressed into the void, unable to move at all. You want me to kneel and wait for my death? Kneel and wait for your death first. Lin Xian kicked out and broke the young man's legs. Then, the young man knelt in the air and screamed crazily. Damn it! How can he be so powerful? The young man was in so much pain that his eyes were filled with fear. That was because he could not believe that Lin Xian was too powerful. Senior brother, save me. Hurry up and save me. He did not dare to be arrogant anymore and hurriedly asked the middle-aged man for help. That was because he could not fight against Lin Xian alone. Perhaps only his senior brother could fight against Lin Xian. Kid, you're courting death. Let go of my junior brother. The middle-aged man's face turned gloomy when he saw that. In the next moment, his aura exploded. It was like a mountain that one could only look up to. You're too arrogant. How dare you offend our Iron Cloud Peak? You should know that our Iron Cloud Peak is more powerful than your Golden Sword Peak. If you know what's good for you, let go of my junior brother obediently and hand over the yin yang fruit. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. You talk too much. Come and save your junior brother personally if you can. With that, Lin Xian waved his hand and threw the young man to the side. Then, he used the ice cage to control the young man. Kid, since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. In the next moment, the middle-aged man stretched out his right hand. Suddenly, a dazzling golden light appeared in his right hand. Then, a golden spear slowly took shape. Boom! The spear pierced out like a golden lightning bolt, shaking the entire sky. The terrifying golden spear pierced through the void and viciously pierced towards Lin Xian. Boom! 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 The void was pierced full of holes in an instant. The middle-aged man's strength was several times stronger than the young man's. When he attacked, the wind and clouds changed. Complete 6-star Great Circle? Is that what gives you the right to be so arrogant? Lin Xian sneered. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the golden spear. Humph, what an idiot. How dare you grab senior brother's golden spear? In the distance, the two women sneered when they saw that. The middle-aged man laughed wildly. What an idiot. Since that's the case, I'll break your hands first. Chapter 1998. When he said that, the golden spear shone even more brightly. Endless light flickered in all directions. Golden lightning descended from the sky, causing the entire sky to tremble. Buzz. However, in the next moment, the spear stopped. The terrifying scene around them also froze in an instant. Then, the lightning and golden light that filled the sky disappeared without a trace. A large and powerful hand grabbed the golden spearhead. That hand belonged to Lin Xian. It was as if he had grabbed the weak spot of a venomous snake and subdued the golden spear in an instant. Damn it! How is that possible? He can grab my weapon. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted, and his face was full of disbelief. In the next moment, he roared crazily and waved his hands, trying to pull the spear out. Perfect 6-star? That's all there is to it. You don't have the ability to be arrogant in front of me. Lin Xian's voice was cold. He exerted strength in his arms and immediately waved the spear. As for the middle-aged man who was holding the spear, he was also lifted up into the air, dancing non-stop in the air. Boom! Lin Xian waved the spear and smashed it hard on the ground. Immediately, the middle-aged man's body fell to the ground, creating a deep pit. Cracks spread in all directions, and it was extremely terrifying. I'm going to kill you. The middle-aged man got up from the ground and roared crazily. Endless sacred light erupted from his body. The terrifying aura shattered the void. Boom! However, at that moment, a foot stepped on his head. Immediately, his body that had just gotten up was stepped back down again. Not only that, but his head was also stepped on into the soil. You still want to fight back? Do you have the ability to? Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. The young man who was trapped and the two women in the distance were instantly stunned when they saw that scene. They did not expect their powerful senior brother to have his head stepped on and unable to resist at all. It was really hard for them to believe. Now, do you still dare to have any ideas about the yin-yang fruit? Lin Xian asked coldly. Hearing that, their bodies trembled, and deep fear appeared in their eyes. What kind of joke was that? They would never dare to have any ideas about the yin-yang fruit, even if they were beaten to death. That was because the young man before him was simply too powerful. Moreover, it was very strange. He was clearly only at the early stage of a 6-star martial artist, but his combat power was so strong that even a 6-star martial artist at the consummation stage was no match for him. Could it be that the other party had already reached the almighty level? They were all terrified. No, I wouldn't dare. The middle-aged man struggled to open his mouth and said, We were blind and didn't know that the Yin-Yang Valley was still young master's territory. Please forgive us, young master. I hope young master won't blame us. The other three also hurriedly apologized. Their bodies began to tremble. Tell me, what is the use of the yin-yang fruit? The yin-yang fruit will bear fruit once a month. However, there are very few of them each time, only 3 to 5. This yin-yang fruit is very magical. It can help you concentrate and train your qi. After consuming it, the soul power and spiritual energy in the body will be refined. If taken over a long period of time, it can even purify one's soul and improve one's physique. It might even give birth to bloodline power. The middle-aged man didn't dare to hold anything back. He explained all the uses of the yin-yang fruit. After Lin Xian heard this, he was greatly surprised. The Yin-Yang fruit was special. It could only be found in the Yin-Yang Valley. No other place would have it. Lin Xian didn't know this before, but now it seemed that the Yin-Yang fruit was very good. Not only could it improve a cultivator's physique, but it could also strengthen one's soul. However, he was very confused. Why didn't Valurium Palace want such a good thing? Why did they leave it here for others to fight over? But soon, he understood. There were simply too few of the Yin-Yang fruit. Although it could improve one's physique and even strengthen one's soul, it needed to be taken over a long period of time. If they only took 3 to 5 fruits each time, who knew how long it would take to gather enough of them? That was why Valurium Palace didn't monopolize the Yin-Yang fruit. Instead, they let the other 5 peaks benefit. In the past, the 5 great winds would fight over the Yin-Yang fruit. At the very least, Jin Jianfeng and Tai Yunfeng's men would fight. However, because of Lin Xian's arrival this time, Big Dipper and Qin Lan didn't come. However, Tai Yunfeng's men had come. They fought Lin Xian, but the result was a crushing defeat. All right, get out of here. Also, this Yin-Yang Valley is my territory from now on. Don't come here again. Otherwise, I'll break your legs the next time I see you. Lin Xian removed his foot and sent the middle-aged man flying with a kick. In the next moment, he removed the cage of ice and snow. These people immediately fled and disappeared into the sky. The Yin-Yang fruit was good stuff. Lin Xian entered the valley and plucked 3 Yin-Yang fruits. He looked at them and saw that there were 2 more. In other words, there were only 5 of them. Without hesitation, he took one and put it into his mouth. The Yin-Yang fruit was very miraculous. It melted in his mouth, turning into pure Yin and Yang energy that quickly entered Lin Xian's body. Lin Xian could feel that his physique was quickly absorbing the energy. His soul seemed to have been tempered as well. Soon, he opened his eyes. It seemed that there would only be obvious changes after consuming the Yin-Yang fruit for a long time. If he only ate 1 or 2 of them, there would not be any obvious changes. It would only be a slow increase. However, this was already good enough. At least Lin Xian still needed to stay in the Yin-Yang Valley for a while. He ate another one, and then shared the rest with the Crimson Dragon and the little white monkey. The news that Lin Xian owned the Yin-Yang Valley quickly spread. The people from the 5 peaks were shocked. That was because the Yin-Yang Valley had been without an owner for 300 years. They did not expect to welcome a new owner this time. However, there were also people who were not convinced. After all, the Yin-Yang Valley could bear the Yin-Yang fruit. Therefore, many people came to the Yin-Yang Valley, but they were all beaten away by Lin Xian. Therefore, after a while, everyone knew that a powerful person had come to live in the Yin-Yang Valley this time. Even those who had attained the great perfection of 6 stars were no match for him. For a time, no one dared to behave atrociously in the Yin-Yang Valley. Lin Xian could be considered to have settled down in the Yin-Yang Valley. On the other side, in Hui Hong's main hall, the black-haired man, 7 Star, had a cold expression. All the Golden Sword Peak disciples thought that 7 Star was a good-natured second senior brother. However, they did not know that 7 Star was a person who hid a knife behind a smile. At this moment, there was no one in the main hall except for 7 Star, so he would not hide anymore. His chiseled face was incomparably cold. Damn guy. He can actually avoid the death aura? How did he do it? To be honest, 7 Star was very surprised, because even he could not resist the death aura in the Yin-Yang Valley. However, the other party was safe and sound. He was extremely shocked. Chapter 1999. Not only that, but the people from the Hall of Law Enforcement had also been sent running. Even a great perfection 6-star cultivator wasn't his match. This shocked 7 Star even more. This was because even though Lin Xian's cultivation was only at the elementary 6-star level, his battle prowess was simply too terrifying. No one below the rank of great expert was his match. 7 Star took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. Then, he began to organize his thoughts. According to the news from the manor, this kid could fight above his level. He could even fight the Mountain Razor General to a draw when his cultivation was suppressed. This meant that he had the strength of a quasi-great expert. But so what? He's just a quasi-great expert. He's not a true great expert. He's nothing compared to me. 7-star's lips curled into a cold smile. However, he didn't relax his frown. His master was in closed-door cultivation right now, so he hadn't attracted his master's attention. However, the manor will hold a great competition in 2 months. If he shines in the competition, his master and the manor will definitely take notice. What if his master takes a liking to him and imparts him with some real cultivation methods? With that guy's talent, it won't be long before he breaks through and becomes a great expert. At that time, I won't have any advantage. 7-star's eyes shone with a fierce light. Little junior brother, I won't let you shine in the competition in 2 months. Qinlan is a proud and aloof woman. She probably won't make a move in secret. Moreover, no one in Golden Sword Peak's younger generation is his match. It seems that I should think from the other 4 peaks and see if I can instigate others to kill him in advance. Even if I can't kill him, I can at least severely injure him. However, the disciples of ordinary elders really aren't his match. Only the disciples of the 5-peak lords can. Lin Xian thought for a while and realized that this Lin Xian really was a monster. No one below the rank of great expert was his match. This drove 7-star crazy. Kid, it seems that I still need to end you with my own hands. Lin Xian began to cultivate after the others left him alone. But during this time, he learned that there would be a grand competition in Valurium Manor in 2 months. This grand competition was Valurium Manor's test for the 5 peaks. Anyone who performed outstandingly in this grand competition would be chosen by Valurium Manor and nurtured with all their might. It was even possible that he could enter the heart of Valurium Palace. Upon receiving this news, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. It seemed that the large competition in 2 months was his only chance. He had to enter the heart of Valurium Palace and use it as a springboard to enter the heart of the Tai dynasty. Only then could he obtain more information about the nest of 10,000 dragons. I remember that when I received the token, that disciple once said that this token would allow me to obtain some cultivation resources every month. Lin Xian recalled. Then, he took out his token and flew off into the distance in a flash. In the distance, immortal mist was faintly discernible. A 7-story pagoda towered into the clouds. Lin Xian arrived at the bottom of the pagoda. Immediately, someone flew up and shouted coldly, "Who goes there?" "I'm Jin Jianfeng's 3rd disciple. I'm here to collect cultivation resources," Lin Xian said in a low voice and took out his token. The guards took the token and examined it carefully. Then, they respectfully handed it to Lin Xian and said, "Senior uncle, please." Lin Xian nodded and followed them into the 7-story pagoda. The interior was incomparably spacious. Runes flickered on the walls and floor. It was obvious that this pagoda was unusually sturdy. It was absolutely unafraid of anyone coming to cause trouble. When they arrived at the 3rd floor, the disciple said, "Senior uncle, please enter. Hand over the token and you'll receive the resources you need." The disciple waited on the side and didn't enter. Lin Xian nodded and pushed open the door alone. After he entered, the stone door behind him slowly closed with a rumbling sound. Although the door was closed, it wasn't dark inside. On the dark walls and ceiling above him were fist-sized luminous pearls that flickered with light. On the wall in front of him, there were many boxes with titles engraved on them. In front of the wall, there was a huge copper lamp with mysterious runes engraved on it. It was abnormally complicated and dazzling. It had an unfathomable aura. Lin Xian walked forward. However, at that moment, the huge copper lamp in front of him flickered. Then, at the mouth of the lamp, a green mist gushed out and quickly condensed into the appearance of a gigantic spirit. "Halt! State your name," the spirit-gathering spirit said. His voice was like thunder, but it didn't spread out of the room. The runes in the entire room flickered and blocked all auras. "I'm Jin Jianfeng's 3rd disciple," Lin Xian said in a low voice. He didn't say his name. Moreover, the items here weren't collected according to one's name. Instead, they were collected according to their titles. For example, if Qinlan came to collect, she would be Jin Jianfeng's eldest senior sister. If Jin Jianfeng came to collect, he would be Jin Jianfeng's 2nd senior brother. As for him, he was the 3rd disciple. With that, Lin Xian waved the token in his hand. That cyan jeweling god phantom received the token and then danced towards the back. The token flew out and embedded itself in a box on the wall. Immediately, there was a clicking sound. Jin Jianfeng's third disciple, you haven't collected cultivation resources for 300 years. Are you going to take them all out at once? What? Hearing this, Lin Xian was stunned. Originally, he had just arrived and thought that he could only take a month's worth of cultivation resources. However, he didn't expect that he could take all the resources for 300 years. This was really surprising. Suddenly, he remembered that the Gold Sword Peak's peak master seemed to have taken in a disciple before. However, he later left and joined the Yin-Yang sect. That person was probably the third disciple at that time. He was now the third disciple. Moreover, this place only collected resources based on their titles, not their names. Therefore, the things that the previous person hadn't collected for 300 years were all given to Lin Xian. Thinking of this, Lin Xian felt excited. Happiness came too suddenly. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Take them all out." He couldn't help it. He was really too excited. After hearing this, the spirit condensation god nodded. Then, he waved his arm and a storage ring floated in the air. Then, it flew toward Lin Xian. All the cultivation resources for the next 300 years are here. Take them. Lin Xian took the storage ring and probed it with his soul power. In the next moment, his pupil shrank. This was because there were 360,000 supreme-grade substandard divine crystals neatly placed inside. 360,000 pieces, and they were all top-grade subdivine crystals. This was definitely a huge fortune. It was comparable to a divine crystal. Chapter 2000. Lin Xian knew very well how rare it was to have a nerve. It could only be cut out from those wondrous stones. Moreover, it was extremely rare. But now, he had obtained a resource similar to a divine crystal. How could he not be excited? In the next moment, he put away the storage ring, retrieved the medallion, and turned to leave. What a pleasant surprise! With these 360,000 substandard divine crystals, Lin Xian believed that he could increase his cultivation again. After obtaining these abundant cultivation resources, Lin Xian immediately returned to the Yin-Yang Valley and prepared to cultivate in seclusion to increase his cultivation. However, he frowned when he returned to the valley. "Who is it? Why are you sneaking around? Come out." Lin Xian snorted coldly. His voice was as sharp as a sword, bombarding the surroundings. "Hee, brother, your soul power is very sharp." At this moment, a soft chuckle sounded. Then, the void rippled and two figures appeared. "Who are you? What are you hiding here for?" Lin Xian looked ahead and asked coldly. There were two figures in front of him, a man and a woman. The man wore a blue robe and had a handsome face. The woman wore a black dress and an icy expression. "I'm from Blue Haifeng. She's from Black Jade Peak." Blue Haifeng and Black Jade Peak were both part of the 5 Great Peaks. However, Lin Xian didn't know what they were here for. "We're here for no reason. We just want to inform you of something." "That is, brother, please give up on the competition in 2 months." "What?" Lin Xian was stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect the two to make such a request. He immediately sneered. "Do you think it's possible for me to give up on the competition?" The competition in 2 months was Lin Xian's opportunity to enter Valurium Palace's core. Even if that wasn't the case, Lin Xian wouldn't listen to them. He wasn't a lamb to be slaughtered. Why waste words with him? Let's just fight. The woman in a black dress said coldly. Her expression was unusually cold. The blue-clothed young man smiled and said, "Brother, we didn't want to target you. It's just that someone doesn't want you to participate. Since you can't be obedient, then don't blame us for being rude." "Impolite? How impolite?" Lin Xian sneered. The two of them were both at the consummate 6-star Great Circle. The blue-robed man was even stronger, and he was about to step into the realm of Almighties. But even so, it was still not enough. Lin Xian did not place these two in his eyes at all. The two of them did not immediately attack Lin Xian. Instead, they took out 2 jade pendants and put them together. Immediately, a dazzling light bloomed, forming countless multicolored lights that rushed into the clouds. In the next moment, 18 large flags appeared in the sky and began to flutter rapidly. Each pole was like a huge mountain, black and oppressive, carrying a heavy aura. We know that you're powerful and can even kill a consummate 6-star Great Circle. So, we don't plan to fight you at all. We only need to trap you for a few months and let you out after the competition. Go. The woman in black snorted and waved her hand. The 18 large flags in the sky were quickly inserted into the ground below, surrounding the entire valley. Then, the 18 large flags formed an extremely mysterious formation cage that covered the entire Inyang Valley. With the 18 iron blood flags, that kid will never be able to get out. Not to mention him, even an almighty can be trapped for a year or so. That kid could have provoked anyone, but he provoked that smiling tiger. He's unlucky. Let's go. The two of them chatted for a while. Then, their figures swayed and turned into a long rainbow, disappearing into the sky. The 18 large flags below landed on the ground, formed a formation, and then disappeared. Ordinary people could not see it at all, but it formed a mysterious force that shrouded the entire valley. The people in the valley could not get out at all. Lin Xian stood in the valley and looked around. When he sensed the mysterious aura, he immediately snorted. Needless to say, it was the doing of the 7-star second senior brother again. It seemed that the other party had really put in a lot of effort to suppress him. To think that he would even resort to using a formation to seal the area. However, how could a mere formation seal him? So, in the next moment, Lin Xian clapped his hands, and the blue frost immediately turned into a huge ice palm that slammed forward. Boom, boom, boom. The intense collision caused countless ripples in the sky. However, this time, the ice palm did not break through the void. Instead, it was shattered. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian was surprised. Buzz. In the next moment, he bent his fingers and flicked out a wisp of sword chi that surged forward. Then, it expanded with the wind and turned into 100 feet long sword light that slashed down from the sky. Clang. Airwaves rolled and the void cracked, but it did not break the formation formed by the 18 large flags. Interesting. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He did not expect the other party to have such a mysterious formation. He would not be able to break it in a short time. However, he was not worried because he had the Crimson Dragon. With the Crimson Dragon's abilities, it would not be a problem to break this kind of formation. Sure enough, when he summoned Ruzalong, the Crimson Dragon said, "Don't worry, kid. I can break it." "That's good." Lin Xian smiled, but then said, "Don't be too fast. If we break the formation now, they will probably attack us again. Why don't I cultivate in seclusion while the formation is still here? We can avoid being disturbed. As long as we break the formation before the tournament begins." Lin Xian smiled. He was originally worried that 7-star would attack him, but now he was trapped by this formation. He thought that the other party would definitely not cause trouble for him again. This made it convenient for him to cultivate in seclusion, other than having the Crimson Dragon remind them during the full moon to avoid those dates of death. Lin Xian had been cultivating in silence. He took out 360,000 supreme-grade substandard divine crystals and at the same time, used the dragon sword field to refine them with all his might. The energy of those supreme-grade substandard divine crystals was completely absorbed by the dragon sword field and focused on Lin Xian's body. In the blink of an eye, 2 months passed. During this period, many newcomers were sent in and assigned to the 5 peaks. The people of the 5 peaks were also excited, regardless of whether they were newcomers or those who had been here for a long time. It did not matter if they were ordinary disciples, disciples of the elders, or even disciples of the peak masters. At this moment, all of them were excited, because the Wang Mansion's tournament was coming. If anyone could stand out in the tournament, they would definitely be noticed by the Wang Mansion and nurtured with all their might. Being noticed by the Wang Mansion was a great opportunity. It was even more desirable than being taken in as a disciple by the peak masters. Chapter 2001. After all, the 5 peaks were only branches of the manor. The entire Valurium Manor was incomparably powerful. It wasn't inferior to some of the great sections. Everyone was accumulating strength and cultivating madly, preparing to show off their strength in the competition. Buzz. A 72-level cultivation pagoda suddenly opened, and a cold figure emerged. She was wearing a blue dress and was standing on a blue greatsword. Her face was beautiful, but her eyes were unusually cold. She was the eldest senior sister of Golden Sword Peak, Qianlan. Although she looked like she was in her 20s, her true age was more than 300 years old. However, compared to those old monsters who were easily thousands of years old, she was still part of the younger generation. Therefore, she was naturally qualified to take part in the Prince's Mansion competition. The same was true for second senior brother 7-star. There were very few people like Lin Xian, who was only 24 or 25 years old, but possessed heaven-defying strength. Every one of them was a peerless genius. Only the holy sons and daughters, as well as the princes and princesses, could do so. Apart from them, the others were all youths who were a few hundred years old. They might be old in the eyes of the common world, but they were very young in the world of cultivation. With the arrival of the competition, not only were the 5 peaks excited, but the entire manor was bustling with activity. This competition wasn't just an internal affair of Valurium Manor. It also invited nearby experts, families, and other factions to spectate. It was a grand event. For one thing, Valurium Manor could show off the strength of their young disciples. Moreover, this was an opportunity for Valurium Palace to cooperate with the other great factions in the area. Therefore, Valurium Manor attached great importance to the competition. The disciples of the 5 peaks were all mobilized. Apart from registering for the competition, they were also receiving the various experts. The manor had limited manpower, and those who were stronger wouldn't do such a thing. It wasn't appropriate for the weak to be sent out to receive the strong. Therefore, the genius disciples, elders, and disciples of the 5 peaks were all mobilized. Senior Feng, please come in. Greetings, Master Skyfire. My master has missed you. Brother Hong, you're early. Laughter rang out as Valurium Manor's disciples welcomed the various experts and geniuses. Among them, even 7-star and Qianlan were sent out. Wang. In the sky, a rainbow streaked across. Then, the light dissipated, and a child appeared. The child was not even half a meter tall, but he had a big head and a beard. His face was no different from a middle-aged man's. This strange scene caused the surrounding disciples to be slightly stunned. However, 7-star's eyelids were twitching wildly. He quickly walked up and said respectfully, "Greetings, esteemed Master He Tuesday." He didn't dare to be careless at all because the short middle-aged man in front of him was extremely terrifying. Even though they were both almighties, the other party's strength far surpassed his. He had reached an unfathomable realm. Moreover, he had a bad temper because he was a natural dwarf. Unlike the dwarfs in the normal world, this was a race. Therefore, even if this middle-aged man cultivated to the level of a powerful being, he would still be short and couldn't change his size. However, his temper was extremely violent. If anyone dared to speak rudely to him, he would definitely torture them to death in an extremely cruel manner. Therefore, 7-star didn't dare to be careless in front of such a person. Not only 7-stars, but Qianlan also met a big shot. Clouds roiled in the sky as an old man slowly descended on a white cloud. The old man was tall and big, with a hooked nose and piercing eyes. However, his arms were missing. His empty sleeves fluttered in the wind. The demiurge crippled master. This was also an extremely terrifying almighty. Even with Qianlan's arrogant personality, he still squeezed out a smile and treated this seriously. What a beautiful child. I remember you. You should be one of Jin Jianfeng's men. The demiurge crippled master looked at Qianlan, his eyes quickly roaming over her body. Qianlan froze when she was enveloped by his gaze. Intense anger rose in her heart. However, she didn't dare show it on her face. She couldn't beat the man in front of her. Moreover, this was a critical moment. She couldn't make a move. Therefore, she welcomed the crippled old man with a smile and invited him inside. Qianlan and 7-star weren't the only ones. Genius disciples from all directions welcomed the experts into Valurium Manor. This was a grand occasion. Congratulations came from all directions. Valurium Manor was currently open to all but the most central areas of the manor for the guests to enjoy. There were also places to live. Mountains, pavilions, terraces, and towers sparkled with light. These were all places for people to live. Spirit beasts danced in the air around them. Mountains and rivers were places for people to enjoy. More and more people arrived. Finally, Valurium Manor welcomed the official start of the grand competition. The weather was clear and sunny. There were no clouds in the sky for thousands of miles. Valurium Manor was bathed in multicolored light. An enormous mountain peak floated in the sky. The magnificent sight was admired by tens of thousands of people. The mountain peak was enormous. However, it didn't have a peak. Someone had sliced it open in the middle with a sword, creating a vast expanse of flat land. There were exquisite palaces and pavilions on the flat land. There were even springs and waterfalls above. All kinds of spirit beasts ran about. This place was called the Immortals' Advent Terrace. It was the most important place in the grand competition. It was also where King Valurium would appear. Apart from King Valurium, the most important people of Valurium Manor would also appear here. Apart from them, very few of those who came to pay homage were qualified to come here. Anyone who could ascend to the Immortals' Advent Terrace was an earth-shattering figure. However, there weren't too many of them. There were no more than 100 of them. There were also 5 floating mountains around the Immortals' Advent Terrace. They had also been sliced in the middle, revealing a vast expanse of flat land. These were the 5 viewing platforms of a lower grade. This was in comparison to the Immortals' Advent Terrace. Those who could come to the 5 great beer temples were no ordinary people. After all, other than the 5 great spiritual altars, there were countless other viewing spots that were prepared for other people. Although Venerable Master Tiancan and the dwarf boy were feared by Qinlan and 7 Star, they couldn't ascend to the Immortals' Advent Terrace. They could only sit on these 5 platforms. Those people took their seats one by one. No one dared to disturb them, and no one dared to forcibly occupy a good place. It would be too humiliating to be beaten down in front of so many people. While Valurium Manor was bustling with activity, Jinjianfeng and Yinyang Valley were also undergoing unusual changes. Chapter 2002. There weren't many people in the vicinity of Yinyang Valley, not even birds or beasts. No one dared to come here because of the presence of death. At this moment, Yinyang Valley was unusually calm. However, it did not take long for the void to start boiling. It was as though it was boiling water, making loud splashing sounds. In the valley, there was an extremely handsome young man who was sitting cross-legged. His hands were constantly changing mysterious seals. He opened his eyes in the next moment. Sword light several meters long tore through the air. His aura suddenly erupted, rushing in all directions with the force of an avalanche. Winds howled within the valley as lightning fell. It was as if the end of the world was imminent. Whoosh! A long howl turned into rolling thunderclouds. The young man stood up, his aura rising steadily. He finally reached mid-6-star King Realm from early 6-star King Realm. At the same time, the 360,000 supreme grade subdivine crystals behind the young man shattered and turned into ashes in an instant. This young man was Lin Xian. Lin Xian smiled as he looked at the 360,000 pieces of subgrade divine crystals that had turned into ashes behind him. After 2 months of absorption, he'd broken through to mid-6-star King Realm. His strength had also increased once again. He looked up into the distance. Endless light shone in the distance, as if a celestial palace had opened. It was about time for the competition to begin. He said, "Ruzalong, it's time. Let's do it." Haha, I'm ready. The Crimson Dragon had deciphered most of the 18 flags of iron and blood over the past 2 months. Only the last step remained. When he heard Lin Xian's command, he waved his dragon claw. Several mysterious runes appeared and floated in the air. A crack appeared in the next moment. Let's go. Lin Xian and the Crimson Dragon left the crack in a flash. He turned into a ray of sword light and flew towards the endless light in the distance. Valurium Palace was unusually lively at this moment. Voices and laughter could be heard from time to time. The Immortals' Advent platform at the center shone so brightly that one could only look up at it. The 5 spirit platforms around it were even more lively. On one of the golden spiritual altars, there were many experts here, including Jean Jianfeng's eldest senior sister Qin Lan and second senior brother Big Dipper. Other than the 2 of them, the 9 elders of the Golden Sword Peak were also present. Other than that, there were also other experts who had come to congratulate him. Their eldest martial sister Qin Lan had an ice-cold personality. Thus, she would not agree too much in this sort of situation. The younger generation was naturally left to second senior brother 7-star. As for the elders of the older generation, they were received by the great elder. At this moment, second senior brother 7-star stood up and smiled. Seniors, fellow Taoists, 7-star salutes everyone. Well said, well said. The older ones all laughed. As for those martial artists of the same age, they stood up one after another. The group of people drank. At this moment, a hurried sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. Then, a sharp sword light pierced through the clouds and flew toward them quickly. The sword chi was sharp and very eye-catching. Therefore, everyone on the golden spiritual platform looked up at the sky at once. What a sharp sword chi! The elders and experts were all astonished, and the younger generation exclaimed in shock. Who would come at this time? Second senior brother 7-star's face darkened when he turned to look at the sword chi. He even spilled some of the wine in his hand because he discovered that the sword chi was actually released by Lin Xian. Damn it, how is this possible? Wasn't that guy trapped by the 18 Ironblood flags? How could he come out? 7-star was extremely surprised because he had already sent people to use the 18 Ironblood flags to trap the other party. That kind of array formation was extremely terrifying. Even an Almighty would not be able to come out without a year or so. But now, the other party actually came out. How did he do it? Could it be that someone helped him? But after thinking about it, 7-star discovered that unless an Almighty-level array master made a move, no one could break it open. Even then, the commotion would be very big. With his means, he could quickly obtain news. However, he did not receive any news at all. This made him even more puzzled. Damn it, this brat's aura has become tyrannical again. What shocked 7-star even more was that the other party's cultivation seemed to have broken through and become a mid-stage 6-star monarch. This made his expression very ugly. Off to the side, Qin Lan naturally noticed Lin Xian as well. However, her face was still cold and expressionless. Although she was a little repulsed by this new junior brother of hers, she didn't think much of him. A mere 6-star monarch was beneath her notice. Therefore, she would not secretly attack him. However, when she saw 7-star's expression, she knew that he must have attacked the other party. Moreover, the other party had successfully escaped. Qin Lan's lips curved into a cold smile when she thought of this. Damn it, we can't let him in. 7-star's expression darkened, a trace of iciness appearing in his eyes. In the next moment, he put down his wine cup and waved his sleeve. He shouted coldly, "Who dares trespass on Valurium Manor? Today is a grand occasion for the manor. Trespassers will be killed without mercy." He roared angrily, a biting cold killing intent radiating from his body. He wanted to kill the other party before they could make a move, to prevent future trouble. Otherwise, the things he had done would be exposed. If his master found out, he would be severely punished. Therefore, 7-star attacked without any hesitation. With a wave of his hand, a blue pagoda quickly flew out. It expanded in the sky like a star and enveloped the sword light. 7-star pagoda. The crowd cried out in surprise. They didn't expect 7-star to be so decisive and use his weapon immediately. Who dares trespass on Valurium Manor? Are they not afraid of death? Who knows? Maybe it's a hothead outside who wants to join in the fun. No matter who he is, he's dead meat. 7-star is a great expert, and he's even used his weapon. That person won't be able to resist at all. In the sky, Lin Xian frowned when he saw the blue pagoda flying towards him. It seemed that 7-star was the culprit. 7-star had attacked him as soon as he saw him. He obviously wanted to kill him to silence him. Since the other party had already made up his mind to kill, why should he hold back? He, Lin Xian, wasn't someone who could be trampled on. Therefore, Lin Xian snorted coldly in the next moment. He didn't face the pagoda head-on. Instead, his figure flickered as he used Empyrean Dragon's 8 steps. He turned into a streak of light and rushed out of the 7-star pagoda's range. Boom! The 7-star pagoda missed its target and shattered the void. The people on the Jinling platform below were extremely surprised. What? He actually dodged it? How is that possible? Could he be a great expert? That person was so fast. Exclamations of surprise rang out. They thought that no matter who the other party was, they would be dead for sure. But now, it was beyond their expectations. Chapter 2003. The other party had actually dodged it so easily, which really surprised them. 7-star was even more surprised. His pupils constricted, and he pushed the 7-star pagoda in the sky, wanting to attack again. Buzz. However, he still underestimated Lin Xian's speed. Lin Xian's figure flashed, and he instantly appeared on Jinling platform. His black hair fluttered, and his red robes fluttered in the wind. His gaze was like lightning, turning into a sharp blade. Lin Xian shouted coldly, "Despicable villain, plotting against me time and time again. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? What? It's actually a young man." Everyone looked at Lin Xian and exclaimed in shock. The powerhouses who came to congratulate were all puzzled. Who is this person? So domineering. He even dares to threaten 7-star. Meanwhile, Jin Jianfeng's elders were all stunned. They recognized Lin Xian. Wasn't he accepted as the Peak Master's third disciple? Why was he constantly in conflict with 7-star? At this moment, the first elder also stood up and said coldly, "Lin Xian, today is an important day for the monarch residents. Don't mess around." Mess around? Lin Xian sneered. Sure. Make this fellow kneel and kowtow to me in apology, and I won't mess around. What? Everyone's eyelids twitched wildly. Make second senior brother 7-star kneel and apologize? How is that possible? That was 7-star, the Peak Master's disciple. His status was equivalent to an elder. Moreover, 7-star was an almighty and could be said to have a noble status. How could he kneel to a 6-star monarch? 7-star's face also darkened when he heard that, and thick killing intent surfaced in his eyes. First elder snorted coldly. What nonsense are you talking about? That's your senior brother. My senior brother? Are you sure he's my senior brother? Do you know what he did to me? Lin Xian sneered. Do you know that my senior brother tried to assassinate me more than once in order to protect his status? If I wasn't strong enough, I probably would have been killed by now. Assassination. Hearing this, everyone was even more shocked. Not to mention the people from the Golden Sword Peak. The experts from the outside world were even more surprised. But very quickly, their lips curled up and they looked like they were watching a good show. This was originally Jin Jian Peak's matter, so what did it have to do with them? However, with such a show to watch today, their trip was not in vain. Nonsense. 7-star also roared. He would never admit to something like this. Little junior brother, I don't know why you are framing me like this, but today is the day of the prince's mansion. Don't let the outsiders see you as a joke. You won't be able to bear the blame of the Wang mansion and master, so you'd better go back home and reflect on your mistakes. What? You dare to do it, but don't dare to admit it? Lin Xian sneered. You're really a coward. Someone like you wants to take over the Peak Lord's position? How laughable. You're courting death. 7-star's face was extremely gloomy. No one had ever dared to mock him like this, and this brat in front of him was actually so reckless. If today wasn't the important day of the prince's mansion, he dared to guarantee that this brat would have died a few hundred times already. Enough. First elder also roared, Brat, hurry up and go back. Don't behave atrociously here. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Impolite? How are you going to be impolite? Try being impolite. Lin Xian did not back down. He took a step forward, and the aura on his body suddenly erupted. Instantly, a terrifying blast of air surged out in all directions. Whoosh! Feeling this sharp aura, everyone exclaimed in shock. The younger disciples even revealed horrified expressions. As for the older experts, their brows were tightly knitted together. They did not expect that although this young man in front of them only had the cultivation of a 6-star intermediate rank king, the aura he emitted was truly too terrifying. If you don't give me an explanation today, I won't let this go, Lin Xian said coldly. He was truly too furious. If he did not kill this 7-star today, his cultivation and strength would be in vain. Stubborn. In that case, don't blame me for being impolite. First Elder's voice was icy cold, and he was about to make a move. However, at this moment, a red-robed elder stepped forward. He was the 8th elder. The 8th elder said, "Big brother, there's no need for you to make a move. I'll capture this brat." He sneered. He and Lin Xian originally had some enmity. Lin Xian was accepted as the peak master's disciple, which made him somewhat nervous. Moreover, he could not take revenge on the hatred in his heart. After all, after becoming the peak master's disciple, his status was equivalent to theirs. However, it was different now. This brat actually dared to openly cause trouble on such an important day of the prince's mansion. He would definitely be severely punished. Moreover, that brat was unwilling to stop now. It was the best time to kill him. Therefore, 8th Elder decided to personally make a move and kill him. Even if the other party really died, the Peak Master and the Prince's Mansion would probably not blame him. Instead, they would reward him greatly. Therefore, he stepped forward without hesitation. "Brat, you really don't know what's good for you. Isn't being your 3rd disciple quite carefree and happy? You actually came here to behave atrociously? Since you're courting death, then don't blame me." 8th Elder sneered, and endless flames appeared on his body. 7-star also laughed when he saw 8th Elder make a move. He naturally knew that 8th Elder and Lin Xian had a feud. Presumably, 8th Elder would definitely not show mercy when he made a move. Moreover, 8th Elder was also a mighty figure. Dealing with a 6-star monarch was absolutely a piece of cake. This way, he could get rid of a potential enemy without having to make a move. Why not? Old thing, I gave you face last time and didn't make a move on you. I didn't expect you to be so reckless. You still dare to find trouble with me now? Since that's the case, then there's no need for you to live. Lin Xian stared at 8th Elder, his eyes filled with murderous intent. 8th Elder actually jumped out at this time and wanted to kill him? How could he let him go? "You're courting death." 8th Elder roared furiously, and his red palm shot out rapidly. Flaming divine palm. A terrifying flame aura soared into the sky, and a terrifying heat wave swept out in all directions. 2 large red palm prints of light dyed the entire sky red. They ruthlessly slammed toward Lin Xian. At this moment, it was as if the god of fire had descended. It was incomparably powerful. Buzz. Lin Xian snorted coldly, and frost surged on his body. Instantly, a blue fist shot into the sky. The terrifying frost aura was piercingly cold, and it instantly formed a layer of frost on the entire spiritual platform. Even the surrounding martial artists were covered in a layer of blue ice shards. What a terrifying frost aura. I wonder who will win? What a joke. 8th Elder is a mighty figure. Isn't it easy to deal with a 6-star monarch? 8th Elder also sneered disdainfully. He had long known that Lin Xian was an ice attribute martial artist, and he immediately sneered. "Brat, you want to compare with me with this frost aura of yours? Go to hell." Chapter 2004. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the 2 flaming palms became even brighter. They were like scarlet divine flames that were dancing. Boom. The 2 palms collided and kept rumbling. However, what was shocking was that the 2 of them were evenly matched. The icy flames did not shatter. Instead, they formed a powerful and effective attack to resist the flaming palms. How is this possible? How can he resist the eighth elder? God, are my eyes playing tricks on me? He has the strength to resist an almighty. Exclamations of surprise could be heard. At this moment, not to mention the people of Golden Sword Peak, even the experts who came from outside were extremely shocked. They looked as if they had seen a ghost. Previously, they wanted to watch the show, but they did not expect the young man to be so domineering. He did not back down in the face of an almighty. In fact, they were evenly matched. It was really shocking. A genius, a peerless genius. Everyone exclaimed. They did not expect the arrogant young man to have such strength. The eighth elder's face also stiffened. A hint of shock and disbelief appeared in his eyes. He did not expect that the young man could resist him. It was really unexpected. The next moment, his face became abnormally ferocious. Die, kid. The eighth elder was furious. He could not tolerate a six-star king being able to resist him. Therefore, he threw out more than 10 palms in a row. The flames surged and dyed the entire sky red. The air waves rolled and the surrounding space trembled violently. The flames on the palms turned into a big red bird in the air. It was as dazzling as a phoenix. The terrifying aura made it difficult for people to breathe. Boom! The big red bird roared and flapped its wings. It carried a monstrous air wave and quickly charged toward Lin Xian. The eighth elder? An almighty? Do you think you can do whatever you want? Today, I'll let you know the consequences of provoking me. Lin Xian was also angry. The eighth elder spared no effort to use his ultimate move in front of everyone. He obviously wanted to kill him on the spot. In that case, why should he hold back? Therefore, the next moment, he roared and clenched his fists. Suddenly, a terrifying destructive aura formed a black storm and swept in all directions. Boom! He threw out a punch, and the roar of a dragon resounded. An arm stretched out like a black dragon and collided with the red bird. Instantly, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Sparks flew in all directions. The destructive aura formed a black blade that cut through the void. The fiery red bird was smashed into pieces in an instant. It screamed and disappeared into the void. As for Lin Xian, his 5 fingers formed into claws, and a black dragon coiled around his 5 fingers. It transformed into a gigantic palm that covered the sky and quickly slapped towards the eighth elder. What? He's so strong. Everyone was stupefied and quickly retreated. One by one, they rose into the air with an abnormally terrified expression. Yi Shiwen was too strong. He was able to shatter the eighth elder's ultimate move with just one punch. It was unbelievable. Not only that, he even took the initiative to kill the eighth elder, which was hard to believe. The eighth elder's pupils shrank. His opponent's fists were too violent. However, he was incomparably furious because the other party actually dared to attack him. He really didn't know what death was. In the next moment, he opened his mouth and spat out balls of fire, which turned into fiery meteors that soared into the sky. He wanted to shatter the gigantic black palm. The gigantic black palm carried with it a violent aura. 5 dragons coiled around it, and it looked extremely ferocious and terrifying, as if it could tear everything apart. Therefore, the fiery meteor-like fireballs could not resist at all and were completely shattered. Not only that, the eighth elder was instantly enveloped by the gigantic black palm. In the next moment, he was trapped in darkness. The 5 true dragons roared ferociously and turned into sharp sword lights. They quickly moved horizontally and violently slashed at the eighth elder. Buzz! The eighth elder roared and waved his hand to form a fiery red light screen. The runes on it shone brightly and formed a solid defense. Clang! Clang! The sword chi blasted on the red light screen, and a deafening sound was heard. In the outside world, everyone could only see a gigantic palm that covered the sky and wrapped around the eighth elder. They could no longer see what was happening inside. Terrifying voices could be heard echoing in the air. At that moment, an extremely miserable sound was heard from the gigantic palm. When everyone heard the sound, their scalps went numb. However, the faces of the people from the Golden Sword Peak changed. This was because they realized that the sound came from the eighth elder. The eighth elder is injured? How is this possible? These people widened their eyes in disbelief. That's an almighty. How could he lose to a mere six-star king? Boom. In the next moment, the gigantic palm let go, and a ray of red light escaped into the distance. It was the eighth elder. At this moment, his hair was disheveled, and he was in an extremely sorry state. There were several sword wounds on his body that had split his body open, revealing deep white bones. There was even one that almost split him in half. He's really injured. Seeing this scene, everyone was extremely shocked. They were only guessing at first, but now that they saw this scene, they knew that the eighth elder was really injured. At this moment, everyone looked at Lin Xian with fear in their eyes. What kind of existence was this young man who could even defeat an almighty? They did not dare to imagine. Seven Star was also stunned. To be honest, he did not expect this to happen either. That was the eighth elder. He was an almighty who was not inferior to him, but now he was being chased down like a stray dog. A cold, murderous intent appeared in his eyes. He swore that he would kill the other party today, because if the other party continued to grow, it would not be long before he would not be able to suppress the other party. Stop! Seven Star roared and waved the seven-star pagoda to block Lin Xian's path. At the same time, he said coldly, "What are you doing? Do you know how big of a sin it is to injure the eighth elder? And this is the Lioli King's mansion. How dare you fight here? Do you want to die?" Humph. Lin Xian ignored Seven Star. He snorted coldly and used the chaotic doppelganger to perform the six-god sword technique. Suddenly, three doppelgangers appeared, each with monstrous sword chi. Like the god of death, they instantly caught up with the eighth elder. A terrifying sword essence erupted and shot into the sky, turning the sky into nothingness. The eighth elder was also pierced by the sword chi. His eyes were wide open as he fell from the sky. What? The eighth elder was killed? Everyone on the spiritual platform went crazy when they saw this scene. None of them dared to believe it. Injuring the eighth elder and killing him were two different things. Almighties usually had life-saving means. Unless they fought desperately, it was rare to be able to kill an almighty. But now, the six-star young man in front of them killed an almighty. It was really unimaginable. Chapter 2005. Seven Star's pupils constricted. He hadn't expected eighth elder to die just like that. In the next moment, he laughed maniacally. Haha, kid, you're an idiot. I don't even need to do anything to kill eighth elder. The Hall of Enforcement will arrest you. They'll pull out your tendons, flay your bones, and tear you to pieces. Indeed, Lin Xian would be arrested by the Hall of Enforcement after what had happened. At that time, the other party would definitely be dead. However, Lin Xian snorted coldly. I'll deal with the Hall of Enforcement when they come, but now it's time for you to die. After saying that, he coldly stared at Seven Star. You want to kill me? I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Seven Star snorted. The blue pagoda floated above his head, shrouding him in a blue radiance. Since you want to die, then I'll fulfill your wish. I'll capture you and kill you with my own hands to avenge eighth elder. Let's see if you have the ability to talk so much. Lin Xian sneered, releasing a biting killing intent. Seven Star also released a blue radiance. Then, the two auras clashed in the air. Terrifying energy soared into the sky. This scene wasn't just seen by the entire Jinling platform. The other four platforms and all the cultivators below saw it. Even the great personages on the Immortals Advent platform at the very center saw it. Only great personages could ascend the Immortals Advent platform. A stalwart middle-aged man sat at the very front. He wore a crown on his head and wore a long robe. His aura was powerful. He was King Valurium. Beside him, there were several experts. Among them were Li Hua General and Moving Mountain General. Even the peak leaders of the 5 peaks were present. The rest were all experts who'd rushed in from outside. Each of them was a peerless expert, their auras as deep as the sea. These people were originally discussing martial arts, but soon they frowned. This was because an extremely sharp aura came from afar, disturbing their state of mind. The experts who had come from the outside were silent, their brows furrowed. This was Valurium Palace. It wasn't their place to ask. Valurium would surely give them an explanation. Sure enough, King Valurium's face darkened when he sensed the change in the energy. What's going on? Could it be that someone wants to cause trouble? The others found it hard to believe as well. After all, who would dare cause trouble in Valurium Palace? At this moment, the steward of the prince's mansion came and quickly explained what had happened below. What? The eighth elder was killed. Hearing this, the expressions of the people in the Wang mansion changed. It seemed that not only was someone causing trouble, but it was also very big. This was simply looking down on the Wang family. Humph! Who dares to be so bold? Which peerless almighty is it? The Peak Master of Iron Cloud Peak snorted coldly. Not a peerless almighty, but a 6-star king. King! Hearing this, everyone was stunned. What kind of joke was this? A 6-star king had killed an almighty? Wasn't this a fantasy? Even the foreign experts looked at each other in dismay. The housekeeper continued, "This 6-star king is also a member of our Wang mansion. To be exact, he is the third disciple that Peak Master Jin Jianfeng just accepted." Whoosh! Even though these people were all peerless experts, they were still in an uproar when they heard this news. The Peak Master of Gold Sword Peak's eyelids were twitching wildly. He had indeed just accepted a young disciple, but he couldn't believe that this young disciple of his could be so arrogant and powerful. He dared to kill the 8th elder at this time, and he even succeeded. For a moment, countless gazes fell on the Peak Master of Gold Sword Peak. The Peak Master of Gold Sword Peak was a middle-aged man. He wore a golden robe and looked extremely valiant. But at this moment, being stared at by so many experts, he was drenched in cold sweat. Especially when he saw that King Valurium was also looking in his direction, his heart beat wildly. Although he was strong, he was only a subordinate of King Valurium. There was no way he could resist the will of a king. "I will go and capture that bastard right now." The Peak Master of Gold Sword Peak braced himself and said. But at this moment, the Mountain Razor General said coldly, "Wait." To be honest, when the steward said that it was a 6-star king, the Mountain Razor General thought that it might be Lin Xian. When he heard that it was the Peak Master of Gold Sword Peak who had just accepted a disciple, he was sure that it was Lin Xian. Beside him, Li Hua General was also surprised. The two looked at each other. Then, the Mountain Razor General stepped forward. "Your Highness, this kid is the young man I told you about." "Oh, it's him." Hearing the Mountain Razor General's words, King Valurium raised his eyebrows and showed a trace of surprise. Previously, the Mountain Razor General had told him that an incredible young man had come to the king's mansion this time. He was able to fight the Mountain Razor General to a draw when he suppressed his cultivation. King Valurium was very clear about the Mountain Razor General's strength. Even if he suppressed his cultivation, he was still very strong. However, the fact that a 6-star king could fight against him was enough to prove his strength. King Valurium wouldn't miss such a person. Therefore, the murderous intent in his eyes disappeared and was replaced by a trace of excitement. The next moment, he said, "What is that kid doing now?" "Your Highness, he is fighting against the second disciple of Gold Sword Peak, 7-star king." Oh, hearing this, the crowd was surprised. They didn't expect that the kid would not only kill the 8th elder, but also fight now. The Peak Master of Gold Sword Peak was sweating profusely because he knew that this matter was too serious. Therefore, he asked nervously, "Your Highness, this?" King Valurium chuckled and said slowly, "It is indeed a headache to have a disobedient disciple under my command. However, the purpose of this competition was to let my subordinates compete. I didn't expect it to start in advance. Since this is the case, why don't you all watch with me?" Many people were stunned when they heard this, because they realized that King Valurium didn't mean to blame them. In fact, he seemed to be happy. This surprised the crowd. However, after thinking for a while, they understood that King Valurium must have taken a fancy to the young man. Thinking of this, the Peak Master of Gold Sword Peak breathed a sigh of relief. The other 4 Peak Masters were shocked. The foreign experts were even more surprised. What kind of young man could be so important to King Valurium? Whoosh! At this moment, the mountain raiser general stretched out his large bronze hand and waved it forcefully. Immediately, the surrounding clouds rolled and quickly dispersed. The scene below was revealed. Then, the people on the Immortals' Advent Terrace turned their heads to look down. They were all peerless experts, so they could see everything clearly. Below, on the Gold Spirit Terrace, Lin Xian and Qi Xing were facing each other. The aura on their bodies continued to rise. One was like a sharp sword, the other was like a vast star. Chapter 2006. Boom, boom, boom. The two forces collided, creating earth-shattering tremors. At this moment, everyone in the manor was paying attention. Those from the law enforcement hall roared angrily, wanting to stop the fight. However, they soon received voice transmissions. Immediately, they stopped and did not attack. Elder, what's going on? Aren't we going to intervene? A disciple from the law enforcement hall asked, extremely puzzled. This was too abnormal. Today was an important day in the manor. They should have stopped the fight in time. However, at that moment, their elder stopped. The elder from the law enforcement hall took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "We have orders from above. We don't need to interfere in this matter. You may all return." Orders from above. Everyone's eyelids twitched when they heard this. The law enforcement hall status was already very high. Above them was the core of Valurium Manor. Since it was an order from such an existence, they could only obey. Therefore, the law enforcement hall members retreated to the side. However, they quickly activated the formation to prevent more buildings from being destroyed. Below, in the void, Seven Star floated in the air, the blue pagoda above his head emitting a resplendent radiance. He was like a god looking down on the world below. Lin Xian's clothes fluttered as well. An enormous sword aura soared from his body, piercing through the clouds. Die, brat. On the other side, Seven Star snorted coldly and swiftly charged over. Lin Xian's expression was calm. With a stomp of his foot, mysterious sword runes appeared and covered the entire golden spirit platform. In the next moment, the earth trembled. The sword runes flickered and turned into a sharp sword light, slashing forward. This sword was extremely sharp, as if a true dragon had soared into the sky. Everyone exclaimed when they saw this sword light. It was so sharp that it felt like it could cut the void in half. Some of the weaker ones didn't even dare to look directly at this sword light. It's useless. You have no chance of winning against me. Seven Star sneered. Holding the blue pagoda in his hand, he launched a powerful attack downwards. A ray of blue light swept over quickly, like a sky full of stars. Soon, it collided with the sword light, causing a huge explosion in the void. Brat, although you're strong, you still have no chance of winning against me. Seven Star's expression was icy. At this moment, he no longer concealed himself. The power of an almighty gushed out crazily. I will kill you with my own hands to avenge the eighth elder. However, I think it's better for you to go to hell and meet up with him. Lin Xian's expression was extremely calm. With a stomp of his foot, the sword pattern under his feet shone even brighter. Then, the streaks of sword light turned into shocking sword chi that shot into the sky. This time, it wasn't just the demon-slaying sword formation. Lin Xian also used the power of the great dragon sword soul. Instantly, the sword chi transformed into numerous azure dragons, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they roared into the void. Each of these azure dragon sword chis was hundreds of meters long, and their bodies were covered with shining azure scales. The sword chi waved, easily tearing the void apart. What is this? True dragon? Or sword chi? When the surrounding martial artists saw this scene, their scalps went numb. The reason for that was because the sword auras were simply too sharp. Moreover, the true dragon he'd transformed into was no different from a real divine beast. It was impossible to tell the difference. The dragons swept in all directions, their bodies as sharp as divine swords. They instantly cut through the blue radiance that filled the sky. Not only that, they roared and charged at Seven Star. Boom, boom, boom. 1, 2, 3. In the end, a dozen streaks of sword chi soared into the sky, transforming into true dragons that breathed in and out divine power. The terrifying power stirred the entire void. In this moment, the entire Valurium Manor was shocked. Everyone was shocked by this heaven-defying method. Even the great personages on the Immortals' Advent Terrace narrowed their eyes. Their expressions were extremely grave. Is this kid really just a 6-star king? What kind of joke is this? The Peak Lords of Iron Cloud Peak were extremely shocked. Even the Peak Lord of Metal Sword Peak felt his scalp go numb. He'd taken the kid in as his disciple because he'd thought that the kid was talented. However, he'd never seen this disciple before because he'd come out of seclusion to attend this banquet. He hadn't expected his new disciple to be so powerful. His combat strength was no weaker than a great expert's. As expected, he's very strong. The Mountain Razor General and Flaming General were also excited. King Valurium's eyes flickered, turning into 2 sharp beams of light as he stared down below. Excited. He was too excited. King Valurium was overjoyed. He hadn't expected to meet such a peerless genius here. One had to know that the 27 houses of the Tai dynasty were all peerless geniuses in the world. But since they were called peerless geniuses, they were very rare. It wasn't easy to find them. Therefore, King Valurium hadn't found many after searching for so long. But he hadn't expected to meet such a peerless genius here, in his own manner. He was too excited. Below, 10,000 swords flew out, turning into true dragons that stirred the clouds in the 9 heavens. The entire sky was filled with endless sword light. In the sky, 7-star was under great threat. Streaks of sharp sword chi filled her surroundings. These sword chi transformed into true dragons that roared incessantly. The dragon claws waved and easily tore through the void, causing too much trouble for him. He roared angrily, and the blue pagoda above his head blossomed with radiance. Streaks of blue aura drooped down to protect him. At the same time, a sea of stars quickly emerged. Buzz. The originally clear sky instantly darkened. In fact, countless stars had even appeared. It was as if day had suddenly turned into night. This was 7-star's king domain. At this moment, it enveloped the entire sky. Brat, you've successfully angered me. I'll let you see my true strength. Big Dipper formation. 7-star roared angrily. Immediately, the 7 stars above his head flickered rapidly, forming the appearance of the Big Dipper. In the next moment, the Big Dipper blossomed with light, casting down a terrifying power that swept down. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, many of the sword chi around 7-star were swept away. The power of the stars was simply too terrifying. It possessed a mysterious and unfathomable power. Even if those sword chi were very sharp, they were still sent flying. After succeeding in one move, 7-star urged his starry sea domain even more frantically. Instantly, the Big Dipper blossomed with an incomparably terrifying light, once again casting down streaks of mysterious power. Humph! Lin Xian snorted coldly when he saw this scene. He waved his arm, and the demon-slaying sword formation changed again. Even more terrifying sword chi rushed out. In the past, it was a single sword chi. Now, under Lin Xian's control, these sword chi began to combine. Hundreds and thousands of sword chi combined to form a huge dragon shadow. Its power was several times stronger than before. Or, 7-star might be killed. From the looks of it, 7-star was being suppressed by Lin Xian. Although he didn't want to admit it, it was the truth. Elder 8 had already been killed in front of him, so he wouldn't allow 7-star to be killed as well. This was because he was the future hope of the Golden Sword Peak. Thus, at the next moment, the Great Elder took action, releasing a screen of light, wanting to separate the two. Humph! However, Lin Xian snorted and executed the Heavenly Dragon 8 steps. Using his extreme speed, he instantly dodged the Great Elder's attack. Then, he appeared in front of 7-star, and the demonic sword in his hand swiftly slashed down. Boom! The sword slashed down, and the void completely exploded. Terrifying air currents rolled, and a sharp sword light flashed. The entire sky was trembling. This was the demonic sword. Coupled with the power of the dragon's sword soul, it was abnormally powerful at this moment. Boom. Even though Seven Star had the starlight screen and was an almighty, he was still sent flying by this sword. Poof. Seven Star spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. Buzz. However, Lin Xian didn't stop. He stomped his foot, and his entire body turned into a shooting star as he chased after Seven Star. At the same time, the demonic sword in his hand slashed out crazily. Poof! Seven Star gritted his teeth and roared crazily. The entire starry sky formed a Taoist robe that draped over his body to resist. However, he was still struck by two sword chi and spat out large mouthfuls of blood. He was in an abnormally wretched state, suffering serious injuries. I don't believe it. Seven Star roared crazily. He couldn't accept this fact. The other party was actually stronger than him. How is this possible? First Elder's expression also changed. He didn't expect that Lin Xian could still injure Seven Star after he made a move. This made him incomparably furious. The next moment, he roared angrily and transformed into a bolt of lightning, instantly arriving in the sky. Then, he clasped his hands together, and a thunder divine hammer quickly appeared and slammed toward Lin Xian's black demonic sword. Clang! With an earth-shaking sound, the two weapons collided, causing a terrifying earthquake. Countless bolts of lightning descended, and sword chi crisscrossed. Many of the martial artists on the Gold Spirit platform were directly sent flying, because this collision was truly too terrifying. Old fogey, you want to stop me too? Today, I'll slay you too. Lin Xian looked at First Elder with an icy expression. He seemed to have transformed into a killing god as countless sword chi rushed out of his body. It swept across the 9 heavens and 10 lands. The dragon sword's spirit domain was executed and instantly enveloped the front. Courting death, First Elder was also enraged. The other party actually dared to attack him. He brandished the Thunder Divine Hammer in his hand and swiftly counterattacked. Clang! Another collision, and a terrifying sound wave tore through the void. Meanwhile, First Elder retreated 3 steps with a pale face. His entire arm involuntarily started trembling. What powerful sword chi! How is this possible? First Elder was astonished. The other party's sword chi could actually numb his arm. It was truly too unbelievable. At this moment, Lin Xian charged over again with the demonic sword in his right hand. First Elder also roared angrily, and Lin Xian behind him roared even more crazily. Carrying the stars that filled the sky, they wanted to converge with First Elder and slay Lin Xian together. All right. However, at this moment, a majestic voice sounded. Instantly, a golden giant appeared in the sky. His body was suffused with a glassy light as he stood indomitable. 2 enormous palms waved and blocked Lin Xian, First Elder, and Seven Star. Whoosh! A terrifying aura spread between heaven and earth. The golden giant was like a heavenly god as he blocked the 3 of them in an instant. Buzz! Lin Xian also stopped in his tracks and didn't attack again. However, his expression was extremely solemn. The dragon sword soul in his body could explode at any moment because the golden giant in front of him was too much of a threat to him. It was far beyond ordinary almighties. On the other side, First Elder and Seven Star felt their scalps go numb when they saw the golden glassy giant. They didn't dare to attack anymore and stood respectfully in the void. Seven Star Heart kept coughing and spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. His injuries were very serious, so he hurriedly consumed some spirit medicine. At this moment, the golden giant rapidly transformed into a beam of golden light and charged into the clouds. Then, the clouds that filled the sky parted, and the spiritual immortal platform slowly descended. Everyone was excited. The pressure that the golden giant exerted on them was truly too great. They knew that an unparalleled expert had attacked. Chapter 2008. Those from the prince's residence were even more shocked because this Valurium giant was one of King Valurium's ultimate moves. Needless to say, King Valurium had made a move just now. Sure enough, King Valurium stood up and strode into the sky. He spoke loudly like a king. "The two of you are indeed not bad. 7-star, your strength has increased again. It won't be long before you break through again." King Valurium waved his sleeve as he spoke, and a vast amount of mighty power poured into 7-star's body. It healed his injuries. "Thank you, Your Highness." 7-star knelt on one knee excitedly with a respectful expression. The others exclaimed in surprise because they could see that 7-star's injuries were very serious. However, this King Valurium was too heaven-defying. He healed such a terrible injury with a wave of his sleeve. It was truly shocking. Even the peerless experts were shocked by King Valurium's move. Lin Xian was also surprised. King Valurium had exceeded his expectations. At this moment, King Valurium's gaze shifted from Lin Xian to Lin Xian. "Little fellow, you're even better. You're a young 6-star king, yet you possess the combat strength of a mighty figure. It's truly rare in 1,000 years. Your Highness is too kind." Lin Xian cupped his fists and said, "You're indeed very good. You've exceeded my expectations. Your talent, I have only seen it in my son and the other princes." Everyone was in an uproar when they heard this because this evaluation was too high. Princes were the children of the various princes in the prince's residence. They could be said to be favored by the heavens. Moreover, they were all born with spiritual treasures in their mouths. Such people were naturally terrifying. However, no one expected that the young man in front of them could be mentioned in the same breath as princes. It was truly beyond their expectations. At this moment, King Valurium said loudly, "Come with me." With that, he waved his sleeve and enveloped Lin Xian. Then, a rainbow-colored light dragged Lin Xian into the sky. Lin Xian did not resist because he realized that the other party had no ill intentions. Soon, he was carried by the light into the clouds and landed on the Immortals Advent platform. Seeing this scene, everyone went crazy. They didn't expect Lin Xian to be able to ascend the Celestial Arrival platform. That was a place only the core members of the Wang clan were qualified to ascend. Now, a 6-star king had been invited by King Valurium to ascend the Immortals Advent plateau. This was a meteoric rise. As expected, the eyelids of those from the Golden Sword Peak twitched violently when they saw this scene. First Elder's expression became extremely grave, while 7-star's face turned pale. He gritted his teeth, and his lungs were about to explode from anger. Jealousy, incomparable jealousy. Originally, ever since the other party had just entered the Golden Sword Peak, he had already begun to be wary of the other party because he was afraid that the other party would surpass him. It would have a huge impact on him taking over Jinjian Peak in the future. However, he did not expect that he had still underestimated the other party. Not only had the other party surpassed him, but he had also surpassed the entire Jinjianfeng. This was because in the entire Golden Sword Peak, only the Peak Master had the right to ascend the Celestial Advent platform. However, the Peak Master was already a mighty figure who had lived for thousands of years, while the other party was only a youth in his 20s. When the two were compared, everyone could see at a glance who had greater potential in the future. To be personally invited by King Valurium to ascend the Celestial Advent platform was a supreme honor. For a moment, 7-star was extremely jealous. As for the others, they were even more envious. Eldest senior sister Qin Lan was also stunned. Her beautiful eyes were filled with astonishment. Previously, she knew that Lin Xian's talent was not bad, but she did not think much of him, because she was a mighty figure, and he was only a 6-star king. The difference between the two was like the difference between a wild goose and an ant. Unless the other party could truly break through and become a mighty figure. Otherwise, no matter how talented he was, there was no way he could be compared to her. Now, however, everything had changed. First, the other party had displayed powerful strength that was not weaker than a mighty figure's combat strength. Now, he had ascended the Celestial Advent platform. This was an honor that no one in the younger generation had ever achieved. At this moment, The difference in status between the two had changed. He was the eagle that soared in the sky, while she, Qinlan, was a laughable egomaniac. Lin Xian did not expect King Valurium to invite him to the celestial advent platform. But since he was here, he would not go down. In the next moment, he looked around and bowed slightly in greeting to the seniors. Good, good, good. Heroes come from the young. I'm old. I'm old. The younger generation these days is truly heaven-defying. Your Highness is blessed to have found such a peerless genius. In the future, you will surpass the other princes' houses. Congratulations sounded one after another. King Valurium laughed heartily and called out loudly, "Servants, give him a seat." Soon, a few stewards appeared and took an exquisite chair at the end of the banquet, as well as a white jade platform. Lin Xian thanked them and sat down. Although he was at the end of the banquet, his status was completely different. Apart from the external experts, those from the other 5 peaks who ascended the celestial advent platform had truly entered the core of the prince's house. This was something that many dreamed of, and Lin Xian had accomplished it in only a few months. Next, Lin Xian and the others watched the fights between the cultivators from the 5 peaks. Those who stood out would receive special attention and training. The banquet lasted for 6 days. No one left for 6 days. At their level, it was very easy to watch the competition for 6 days. It was as frequent as eating and drinking. After 6 days, the competition came to an end. Those who performed well were summoned by the prince's house and trained with all their might. As for the other experts, they also congratulated him before leaving. King Valurium once again projected a glass screen and led Lin Xian away from the celestial advent platform. A ray of glazed light soared into the sky and instantly turned into a bolt of lightning, disappearing into the air. This speed was much faster than Lin Xian's Sky Dragon's 8 steps. They weren't even on the same level. Lin Xian was extremely shocked as he was enveloped by the glass aura. He knew that King Valurium was no ordinary person. Judging from his speed, he was at least a peerless expert. But where was he taking him? He didn't know. But soon, he narrowed his eyes. Lin Xian noticed that there were 7 dragon balls in front of him, forming a screen of light. This should be the heart of Valurium Manor. He had come here to investigate before and knew that he had to enter openly. Otherwise, he would definitely be discovered if he sneaked in. He didn't expect that King Valurium would personally take him to the heart of the manor 2 months later. When he entered the screen of light, dozens of auras locked onto him. Chapter 2009. However, when they noticed Valurium's presence, the aura quickly dissipated like the tide. Although it was only for a moment, Lin Xian still felt cold sweat trickle down his back. The murderous aura was too terrifying. It was the aura of a great expert. No matter how strong Lin Xian was, he wouldn't be able to defeat dozens of great experts at once. Fortunately, he hadn't recklessly barged into Valurium Manor's core. After entering, Lin Xian looked around curiously. He discovered that the core area was even more magnificent and vast than the outskirts. There was no trace of it, as if it was a kingdom. Valurium flew at top speed, passing through countless mountains and rivers. Finally, he stopped in front of a black mountain. Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, the aura of Valurium disappeared from Lin Xian's body. Then, Lin Xian's figure appeared. Around him was a continuous mountain range. In front of him were 3 peaks. There were 3 towering mountains that towered into the clouds. Not only that, the aura of the 3 peaks was terrifying, as if they were the mountains of the divine realm. They exuded a terrifying aura. If that was all, Lin Xian wouldn't be shocked. What shocked Lin Xian was that the 3 peaks in front of him all exuded a terrifying aura, but upon closer inspection, they were all different. The peak on the left was fiery red. Fire and magma filled the sky, forming a world of fire. That terrifying fire elemental energy shocked even Lin Xian. He could feel that this flame was even more terrifying than the netherski flame he'd obtained from the sky nether bird. The mountain peak in the middle was surrounded by bolts of black lightning. The berserk power continued to pierce through the void. The power of lightning was something Lin Xian had rarely seen in his life. As for the third mountain peak, it was completely white. The peak was covered in white snow, and a terrifying ice chi could be felt even from far away. Each of the three peaks towered into the clouds, containing three different types of energy. What do you think of these three peaks? Valurium asked in a low voice. It's mysterious and contains great power, Lin Xian replied. He didn't know why Valurium King had brought him here. Hearing Lin Xian's words, King Valurium nodded. It was indeed very strong. Even great experts would benefit greatly from it. Do you want to go in? Let me in? Lin Xian was taken aback. He hadn't expected King Valurium to ask such a question. Then, his eyes blazed. Indeed, the power contained in the three mountains ahead had surpassed the power of wind, fire, and lightning that he possessed. If he could go in and refine the energy inside, his strength would definitely increase again. However, there was no free lunch in this world. Why is King Valurium helping him? Is it just because he is talented? Of course I want to enter such a strange mountain. I just don't know what conditions your highness has. Lin Xian asked. Valurium smiled when he heard this. You're a smart kid. I do have some conditions. Let me introduce you to these three mountains. King Valurium didn't mention his conditions in advance. Instead, he introduced the three mysterious mountains ahead. Have you heard of the Cerberus of Hell? The Cerberus of Hell. Lin Xian was shocked. He had heard of it before. He was no longer a rookie. The Whispering Headhound was one of the most powerful demon beasts on the sky ranking. It was said that it specialized in suppressing the nine hells. It was extremely terrifying. Then, Lin Xian's pupils shrank. His face was full of shock. Could it be that these mountains are related to the Cerberus of Hell? He was indeed shocked. The Cerberus of Hell had 3 heads in addition to its terrifying strength. As for the 3 heads, they respectively grasped the power of fire, lightning, and ice. It was similar to the 3-headed vermilion bloodbird, but it was much more powerful than the latter. Indeed, these mountains are related to the Cerberus of Hell. As for how they are related, that is a secret of the manor. I can't tell you, but you only need to know that it's a great fortune to be able to enter. Lin Xian took a deep breath. The Whispering Headhound was too famous. He didn't expect that the mountains ahead were related to the Cerberus of Hell. Moreover, whether they were related or not, just the energy of the 3 attributes that he felt now was enough to make him excited. Therefore, he asked again, "What are your conditions, your highness? Help me do 3 things. As long as you accomplish them, I will let you enter the Purgatory Mountain." 3 things? What 3 things? Lin Xian asked. These 3 things are not simple. They can even be said to be very dangerous. I can't tell you all at once. I will only tell you the next mission after you complete one, because there was more than one person who accepted this mission. Unfortunately, none of them completed it. Are you willing to accept this mission? None of them completed it. Hearing this, Lin Xian frowned. Could it be an earth-shattering mission? Thinking of this, he said, "Your Highness, I'm just a little 6-star king. Although I have some strength and can fight against the Almighty, but if it's beyond my strength, I'm afraid I can't accept it." Don't worry, it won't exceed your strength. At least, it won't make you fight against the Almighty. King Valurium said, "You are the one I have my eyes on. I still need you to help me fight against the other mansions in the future. So, I won't let you throw your life away. However, although there are no Almighty, it's still very dangerous. So, it's your choice whether to accept it or not. I can agree to your 3 conditions, but you must let me enter one of the mountains first." Lin Xian said, "No problem. I can let you enter the Fire Mountain first. Then, you can go and complete the first mission." King Valurium said. Then, with a wave of his sleeve, the clouds in front of him tumbled. The aura of Valurium filled the sky and quickly formed a bridge. It connected Lin Xian's feet to the Hell Mountain in the distance. I'll let you enter the Fire Mountain. As for how long you can stay there and what kind of fortune you can obtain, it's all up to you. Thank you, your highness. Lin Xian cupped his fists and strode onto the Valurium bridge. He looked at the mountain in the distance, his eyes shining. At the same time, he was extremely excited. Soon, his speed became faster and faster. In an instant, he was in front of the fire mountain. In the next moment, he took a step forward and entered the fire mountain. "Kid, let me see if you have the strength to help me complete that mission," King Valurium said in a low voice. He didn't leave. Instead, he waited quietly. On the other hand, Lin Xian entered the fire mountain. After entering, he felt a monstrous heat that turned into a sea of fire that surged toward him. It was as if it wanted to burn him to ashes. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.